Chapter 123. Since the social tab showed that Xiao Tan's group was still in-game, Feng Bujue went to visit the thriller box again. Compared to that afternoon, the number of items had tripled, and the number was still increasing. This time, even if he only looked at the names, he would not be able to go through them all. He could only use a vague search function to browse. Without realizing it, an hour had passed. When Feng Bujue returned to the login lobby to check his friend tab, he saw that Xiao Tan's group's status had turned to idle. The three of them had left the scenario at the same time, so there were only two possibilities. One was that all three of them had died at the same time, and the other was that they had been teleported out of the scenario after clearing the scenario. Feng Bujue believed that the second possibility was more likely, mainly because he had confidence in the combat ability of the two ladies. He did not ask for a communication request, but directly invited the three into his meeting room. After Xiao Tan received the message, he invited Feng Bujue to join the team and handed over the team leader's authority to him. Passing Rain was the first to walk in. She looked at Feng Bujue's expression, and driven by her instinct, she asked a sharp question. "Did you lose the killing game?" "I suppose you can say that," Feng Bujue replied. Right then, the door opened for the second time, and Laughing Soul walked in to overhear their conversation. She interrupted with a smile. "Leader, a loss is a loss. What does I suppose you can say that mean? Let's not talk about it." Feng Bujue felt like that was the only answer he could give. After the door closed, it opened again, and Xiao Tan walked in. He was holding snacks in his hands, and he mumbled, "Yo, brother Bujue, are you trying to copy Joker with this look?" "Yes, I did it myself," Feng Bujue replied with pride. "That's not a good taste." Passing Rain's comments splashed a bucket of cold water on his enthusiasm. Feng Bujue immediately pretended to be serious and changed the topic. "About that. Other than the killing mode, I've also checked out the solo survival mode on nightmare mode. In the end, you still couldn't clear the level, right?" Laughing Soul asked with a wicked smile. "I did clear the level." Feng Bujue's expression was solemn. "But the feeling after clearing the level, how should I put it? I might as well have died halfway." "Then it's because of the plot." Passing Rain keenly sensed something. Anyway, I personally don't recommend you guys, especially Xiao Tan, to play that kind of game," Feng Bujue said. "I wouldn't go even if you asked me to. I don't really dare to play a single-player mode that isn't Nightmare," Xiao Tan replied. Laughing Soul narrowed her eyes and used a condescending gaze to look at him. "When we were playing team mode, didn't you make a fuss about it? Because we were from the same guild, you embarrassed me as well. Never mind. You'll get used to it after some time. Since Xiao Tan didn't disconnect from the game and survived until the end, then you should admit that he is quite capable," Feng Bujue said. You used a tone that sounded like you were trying to help me, and you said something like that. You sure have guts." Xiao Tan sadly swallowed another mouthful of snacks. Feng Bujue ignored him and got down to business. "Fine, let's talk about the next round. Considering that there are 4 of us, if we want to play the slaughter game together, it will be a 2v2 or a team survival mode. You haven't queued with us in team survival mode, right? Then we'll do it once," Passing Rain replied. "Agreed," Laughing Soul replied. "Seconded," Xiao Tan added. "Other than that, after the scenario is over, we girls will have to go offline," Passing Rain said. "Understand. Sleeping in the gaming hub for too long is not good for the body." Feng Bujue smiled. He still remembered what Passing Rain said that afternoon. "You've already logged in and cleared 2 long team scenarios, right? 1 more, and you'll need a rest. Then, since we're already sitting in the conference room, we should get to know each other's status before we queue," Passing Rain said. "You have a point. That way, we won't know our teammates' details after we enter the scenario." Feng Bujue nodded. "Then we'll lose the point of teaming up." Like a demonstration, Passing Rain took the lead and said, "I'm currently level 15, and my title has been updated to Elemental Swordsman. The title's ability is to passively increase the damage of weapons used against spiritual creatures. My highest mastery is Fighting D, and my weakest is Healing and Summoning. I haven't even unlocked them yet. My main weapon has just been changed, so this one should be able to last for quite some time." As she spoke, She projected an item from her bag onto the conference table in the form of a three-dimensional projection. The data was clear at a glance. Name: Holy Seal item type, weapon quality, normal offense points, medium element, none special effect, increased sorcery recovery speed of wielder by 50%, equip requirement, fighting D. Remark: this sword's true power has been sealed. When it has killed a certain number of evil spirits, the seal will be unlocked, and the sword will be able to unleash its full power. Oh, this is very powerful. It's not a sorcery weapon, but it's a piece of equipment that can grow, Feng Bujue said. Sorcery weapon? The other three looked at him curiously. Therefore, Feng Bujue projected his death poker on the table in the form of data and learned from passing rain to explain his situation. Now, I'll use God's perspective to list Feng Bujue's current status in detail. Title: Plot Explorer EXP 1100015000. Skill points 1,580. Game coins 204600. Mastery. General ability D. Workmanship E. Sleuthing E. Fighting D. Bonus for Mask. Marksmanship D. Medic F. Sorcery F. Summoning any inventory 710. Mario's Wrench. Eye of Hostility. M1911. A 1 pistol, 2 bullets remaining. Echo Armor. Life Points Recovery Potion. M. X4. Knife. Flashlight Equipment. Jazz Dance. Casey Jones Mask. Death Poker. Inventory 310. Puzzle Card. Monkey. Puzzle Card. Sunglasses. Puzzle Card. Spin Skills. Hasty Repair. Devilish Child's Lower Whip Kick Body Enhancement Technique. Decisive Victory. After listening to Feng Bujue's introduction, the other three were shocked. Of course, he did not give a detailed description. He only copied Passing Rain's method and talked about his title, skills, highest mastery, and talents that had not been unlocked. Other than that, he showed off his death poker. However, based on that information, it was enough to determine that he was very strong. In reality, for a level 15 player, Passing Rain was already the highest level of a normal player. The only difference between her and a professional player was the time she spent online and the game's attitude. With the same level and equipment, Passing Rain's combat ability would not be weaker than Jiang, whose Laughing Blade, or Brahman's 4 Heavenly Kings. However, she had only reached level D in her fighting mastery, and she had not unlocked any sorcery weapons. For someone like Feng Bujue, other than summoning, he had unlocked all his masteries. Furthermore, he had 3 level Ds and 2 level Es. Regardless of whether or not he had the bonus from his equipment, just based on his comprehensive stats, it was already something that others could only dream of. Of course, for Feng Bujue to reach his current level of mastery, there were many hidden dangers. Compared to players who specialized in 1 or 2 masteries, his most obvious weakness was his lack of practical combat experience. This could be seen from his battle with Blade Runner. Furthermore, until now, he did not have a combat skill that could be used as a main force. Body Enhancement spell only increased his physical fitness. For a player like him who did not know anything about fighting, it was like adding gasoline to a tractor. Actually, it was more appropriate to add some diesel. The player's personal ability and the character's ability were 2 different concepts. If Feng Bujue's title ability, a strategic victory, was his signature skill, then in reality, he was just a player who specialized in solving puzzles with a very high level of mastery. Brother Bujue, this weapon is invincible. How'd you get it? Xiao Tan asked. I did a hidden mission in the killing game. Feng Bujue replied. Speaking of which, the result aside, the script was quite good. It borrowed the setting of Thunderbolt. As long as I created a suitable poem for myself, I would have completed the mission. Poem? You can even come up with something like that? Laughing Soul asked. What are you talking about? That's my profession. Feng Bujue said. Speaking of which, it's rare for you two to have such Thunderbolt ideas. Do you want me to help you come up with 2 more? That's not necessary. Thank you, but there's no need. The 2 girls rejected him instantly. Okay, Feng Bujue said awkwardly. Then let's continue. Xiao Tan, tell us about your combat ability. Xiao Tan popped a chip into his mouth and sucked on his fingers. From his expression, He looked like he was in deep thought, but at the same time, he did not even know his own status and was sneaking glances at the game menu. A few seconds later, he said, I'm also level 15 now. I've finally changed my title from Panicked Ambusher to Nervous Fighter. I feel a little better now. The ability of the title is an active skill called Bee's Sting. It can cause enemies to bleed. My highest mastery is level D in fighting, but I haven't unlocked my sorcery and summoning mastery. General ability and shooting are both level E, and the other three are all level F. My main weapon is store-bought, a normal quality Damascus dagger. I've sold my original kitchen knife. I still haven't used the slow sand. Oh, by the way, Brother Jew, I still have your Winchester shotgun. I forgot to return it to you earlier. Fong Bujua waved his hand and said, You should keep that gun. I have plenty of weapons now. At this point, he stood up and picked up the stool that he had been sitting on earlier. Due to the blocking of the meeting table, it was not until then that the group realized that Fong Bujua had not taken the chair that came with the meeting, but had been sitting on a stool. Seeing everyone's reaction, I'm relieved, Fong Bujua said as he placed the stool into his inventory. It took up the 8th slot of his inventory. Hey, is that a weapon? Xiao Tan asked. Yes, and after the experiment earlier, I'm very sure. Fong Bujua said, This thing can really be used to hide danger. Don't tell me you're planning to use this to ambush others in the killing game. Laughing Soul soon saw through his intention. Of course. I wish you success. Fong Bujua shrugged and turned to Xiao Tan. Back to the topic. Can you tell us more about your skill, Bee's Sting? Name, Bee's Sting Special Skill Type. Active Consumption. 7% of maximum stamina points effect. Can be activated the moment the attack hits the target. The target will suffer the lightest bleeding effect for 2 minutes. The effect can be stacked up to 10 times. No matter the number of stacks, the duration will start from the last activation. No cooldown. Requires a sharp weapon that can cut through the target's skin to activate. Can only be used on one target at a time. Remark, if you don't have the advantage in terms of strength, you could try a battle of attrition. Xiaotan gave a brief description of the skill, and Fong Bujua nodded. Not bad. Combined with stamina points recovery potions, you might be able to wear down a very strong player. Player? Xiao Tan smiled. It's already good that I can use this to deal with those bulky boss-level monsters. If I'm fighting a player, they will use medicine or bandages, right? No, the disgusting nature of your skill is perfect for dealing with players. Fong Bujua shook his head. You'll bleed if you come into contact with it, and you can use it again and again without any cooldown. With full stamina points, you can inflict more than 10 bleeding effects. The duration of the skill is awkward, and a loss of HP is not painful. If you leave it alone, it will stack, and if you leave it alone, you'll need to use bandages. When the time comes, your opponent will be troubled by this endless bee's sting. It's too wasteful to use bandages when the effect is light, but when the effect is severe, you'll need to use more health potions. Passing Rain obviously agreed with Fong Bujua, and she added, As for what you said about wearing down a bulky boss, you're overthinking it. Xiao Tan was confused. Huh? Why? Fong Bujua sighed. If there really is a boss like that, its recovery ability will be enough to negate the effect of your skill. That's a simple logic. Agile monsters are more fragile, and slow monsters have amazing damage or defense. Xiao Tan said, I see, but to be honest, I really don't want to fight a player. It doesn't suit me. All right, they're just talking about your skill, Laughing Soul said. Then she turned around and said, It's my turn, right? My level is slightly lower, level 14. My title hasn't changed, and it's still Smart Gunner. My title's ability is passive, but it has nothing to do with combat. The effect is that I can store 3 different weapon magazines in one slot of my inventory. My best mastery is Marksmanship D level. Other than summoning, I've unlocked all my other masteries, but they're not as good as the leaders. My general ability, Workmanship, and Sleuthing are all E level, and the other 3 are F level. As for weapons, I don't have a specific main weapon, but I have 3 guns that I usually use. Fong Bujua thought about it and said, I have a rough idea of the team's configuration. Then, Let's prepare to depart. Chapter 124. Feng Bujue, Level 15. Wang Tanji, Level 15. Like Rain, Level 15. Laughing Soul, Level 14. Please select the game mode that your team wishes to join. You have selected Team Survival Mode, Normal. Please confirm. Confirmed. The number of team members has been randomized. 4. Your team has joined the queue. Matching complete. Coordinating nerve connection. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. It looked like their team of 4 was very lucky to have been randomly assigned a 4-man scenario. However, something strange happened during the scenario generation stage. The greeting of Welcome to Thriller Paradise did not appear. Furthermore, the 4 of them were not transported out like a normal team survival mode and were given a first-person view of the opening cinematic. They only felt the elevator move a certain distance before they heard the system announcement for the next step. Download complete. You are currently in Team Survival Mode, Normal. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there is a chance of triggering hidden side missions and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario. Randomly draw a learnable skill card. Playing the scenario introduction soon. The game will start immediately after that. The next second, nothing happened. There was no introduction. What's going on? The 4 of them were pondering the same question in their respective elevators. Suddenly, they felt the ground beneath their feet disappear, and they started to fall. The floor of the elevator opened without warning, and no one was able to react to this sudden change. Thankfully, this was not a kill when the door opened setting. The players only fell about 2 meters and landed on a slide. An invisible force tugged at their bodies, causing them to slide forward along the slippery path beneath them. The design of the slide was similar to the one at the water park, but there was no water. Instead, it relied on gravity and repulsion to move the objects on the slide, and they moved very fast. The 4 of them were moving forward involuntarily in the dark. They had no idea where their teammates were, and they could not see anything. They merely moved down their own path at high speed. It didn't take long for this inexplicable beginning to end. They reached the end of their respective slides one after another. Feng Bujue was pulled by the invisible force and slammed into a chair with a large back. Then the chair started to spin on its own. When it finally stopped spinning, Feng Bujue found himself in a space that appeared to be quite spacious. The surrounding light was very dim, and he could not see too far. He could only vaguely see the scenery within 10 meters. Looking around, Feng Bujue realized that Xiao Tan, Passing Rain, and Laughing Soul were sitting on the same chairs as him. Each of them had a tall control panel in front of them, and the 4 of them each took one side. In the middle was a circular empty space about 10 meters in diameter. The floor was made from large tiles, and the tiles had a black and white pattern that looked like a chessboard. Just as they were confused, a deep and powerful voice suddenly rang out from the darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, and the audience regardless of gender, welcome to the live broadcast of Death Quiz. Let us welcome the host, Mr. Yu. A cylindrical light pierced through the dark environment and projected onto a path that connected to the circular stage in the middle. At the end of the path was a large skeletal door. Then, the door opened and a large amount of white fog leaked out. It was unclear whether it was dry ice or real fog. In the next second, dozens of dazzling colored lights swept past. Accompanied by Jiangnan-style music, a fat man jumped out of the door while dancing on horseback. And in the surrounding darkness, there was also a clamor of cheers. This Mr. Yu was bald. He wore a tailcoat that was tailor-made for him. He wore a pair of small round sunglasses, and a tall black top hat sat on his bald head. His face was charmingly naive, and although he was fat, he appeared very agile when he jumped. He moved to the center of the stage like a large penguin, and at the moment the music came to an abrupt end, he even struck a pose that imitated the ending pose of the sculpture. The thinker, hey, what is this? Does this mean that the horse dance will last for another 30 years? Feng Bujue asked. Welcome, everyone. This is... Mr. Yu raised the microphone in his hand high into the air. At that moment, the lights around them came on, and Feng Bujue could finally see everything clearly. The space looked like a recording set for a large variety show. The ceiling was filled with lights, and there were cables that connected to sound systems everywhere. The 4 players were seated facing the circular stage in the middle. The control panel before them had a flexible microphone, a button the size of a coaster, and 4 small buttons that represented A, B, C, and D respectively. There was also a screen. Behind them, in other words, on the spectator stands, were thousands of demons and ghosts. There were almost all kinds of things: ghosts, demons, half-beastmen, fairies, vampires, werewolves, Frankenstein monsters, and so on. In this place, humans were perhaps the only ones who were considered as the outliers. Die, ask, answer. Without the direction of a live director, the audience still responded to the host's interactive questions enthusiastically and loudly. Hugh. Mr. Yu laughed in the style of Coach and Sigh. Then he snapped his fingers, and a staff appeared in his hand out of thin air. Mr. Yu held the microphone in one hand and raised the staff in the other. Then, let me introduce the 4 contestants who are here today. He twirled the staff in his hand several times and then pointed it at Feng Bujue. Number 1, Feng Bujue. He repeated the introduction. Number 2, Wang Tanji. Number 3, Ruo Yu Ruo Li. Number 4, Laughing Soul. And the prize for today's winner is... Mr. Yu used his hand that held the microphone to take out a white plastic medicine bottle from his pocket. There was no label or words on the bottle. A bottle of SCP-500, the panacea, containing 20 pills. He raised the bottle to show it, and then, like magic, the bottle disappeared. Of course, if they all die in the game, the prize will be carried over to the next episode. Feng Bujue did not stay idle during this period. He used a strategic victory to see who the boss of the scenario was, and what he saw was the fat host data. The skills data was as follows. Name, Mr. Yu race, demigod level, out of measurable height, 160 centimeters weight, 103 kilograms combat style. Weakness, own skill, danger level, extremely lethal. Right then, Misty said, "All right, let us listen to each contestant's pre-match declaration. First, number 1, Mr. Crazy. I think it's best if we play according to the rules of this game," Feng Bujue said as he winked at his teammates. Since they had gotten to know each other before entering the scenario, the other 3 naturally knew what Feng Bujue's title skill was. When they heard that, they understood. Do not resist. If you disobeyed the rules of this scenario, you would die. Actually, even if Feng Bujue did not say that, they would not have acted so rashly. Even though they did not know how powerful this kind fatty before them was, they had to be careful of the power of the audience around them. With so many powerful monsters, any one of them could easily wipe out all 4 of them. It sounds like a meaningless statement, Mr. Yu said with a laugh. Mr. Yu laughed, and the audience laughed as well. Then he pointed at Xiao Tan and said, "Participant number 2. Huh? Me?" Xiao Tan was startled. Is it possible for me to quit now? Good question. The answer is... Mr. Yu paused and said with a smile, "No." The audience laughed again, and Xiao Tan's lips twitched as he laughed drily. Then, contestant number 3, Mr. Yu said to Passing Rain. "I have nothing in particular to say," Passing Rain replied coldly. "This pretty lady is very cool." Mr. Yu shrugged. Then he turned to Laughing Soul. Contestant number 4. "Do you mind if I ask what the prize is?" Laughing Soul was very pragmatic at a time like this. Mr. Yu raised his brow and showed her a friendly and trustworthy expression. "It is guaranteed to cure all diseases." "Oh, then do you mind if I ask one more question?" Laughing Soul wanted to ask more, but she was interrupted by Mr. Yu. "All right, everyone, before the first round starts, let us introduce our 3 special guests today." Mr. Yu pointed at the row of seats at the front of the stage, and the light shone there. Sitting on the leftmost row was a blonde Caucasian woman. She was wearing a black suit, and her arms were crossed before her voluptuous chest. She looked about 30 and was quite pretty, but the expression on her face was filled with condescension and condescension. The first is Miss Pride from the Seven Deadly Sins, Mr. Yu introduced. Humph! When the camera focused on her, Pride only scoffed and turned her head away. However, the audience's response was enthusiastic. Cheers and whistles rose and fell. Sitting next to Pride was a young man who looked about 20. He was also wearing a black suit. He had a ponytail, and his face was bloodless. His eyes were unfocused, and he was practically lying on his seat. The second is young Master Pestilence, one of the four horsemen, Mr. Yu said. The light shone on Pestilence. He used his hands to shield his eyes, as if the light could harm his weak body. He coughed twice and said, "Cough, cough. I don't think I'm feeling so well. That's what you say every time I see you. It's fine. You're much better than Mr. Kidney Deficiency," Mr. Yu said. Another burst of laughter came from the audience. The light shone on the last guest. Sitting there was a middle-aged man. His face was resolute, and his eyes were bright. He was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and jeans. The muscles on his arms were as clear as a sculpture. Next is the third guest, the god of fire, Mr. Hephaestus, Mr. Yu added. He is also the sponsor of the prize for this week's episode. Actually, I'm here because I'm bored facing the group of Cyclopes at the mining area, Hephaestus said. There was sporadic applause from the audience, but some of them were Cyclopes, and they used booze to express their dissatisfaction. All right, everyone, our show is about to officially begin. Mr. Yu suddenly teleported to stand before a camera. The camera zoomed in on his face, and he spoke at an incredible speed into the camera. This show is sponsored exclusively by ThrillerBox. If you send a message to participate in the quiz, you'll have a chance to win a beautiful gift of 1,000 ghost coins provided by ThrillerBox. You can also log into the website at the bottom of the screen to participate in our live stream. To make a trade, come to ThrillerBox. To win a prize, watch Death Quiz. Thank you for your continued support. No wonder the scenario doesn't have an introduction and doesn't say welcome to Thriller Paradise. Phone Bujua ignored Fatty Yu, who was busy advertising, and thought to himself, so there will be a host to explain the rules. Phone Bujua studied the group of monsters around him. None of them looked like they were easy to deal with, and that Mr. Yu probably had the power to kill him in 1 second. It looked like the chance of fighting in this scenario was very low. There was no freedom to speak of under these conditions. Currently, it was still unclear what the rules of this death quiz were, but from the name and what Mr. Yu said, there was a chance of dying in the process. But to clear the scenario, the only way was to participate to the end. First, the first round, a compulsory question. Mr. Yu tossed his staff into the air. With a bang, the staff disappeared without a trace. Then, he took out a stack of cards from his shirt pocket. The cards were about the size of envelopes, and they were hard. The back of each card had the logo of Death Quiz printed on it. Only the host could see the content on the front. The rules for this round are as follows. I will ask the 4 contestants questions according to their number. Each question will have 45 seconds to answer. 10 points will be awarded to those who answer correctly, and 10 points will be deducted from those who answer incorrectly or exceed the time limit. There will be 16 questions in total. The contestant with the lowest score at the end of this round will enter the Coliseum. After Mr. Yu finished reading the rules, he immediately turned to Phone Bujua. Then, please listen to the first question. Phone Bujua did not have time to figure out the meaning of this Coliseum. He had to focus on the question. This is a history question. Mr. Yu's tone was steady, and he had a good grasp of the rhythm. May I ask? Chapter 125. Even though Mr. Yu said go ahead, he did not ask the question immediately. Instead, he smiled at Phone Bujua and said, the first question is relatively easy, so there's no need to be nervous. Did I say that I'm nervous? History is my specialty, Phone Bujua replied calmly. Okay, the question is, Renjia. Once Mr. Yu said the name, Phone Bujua sighed in relief. He was worried that the question would be based on some kind of illusory worldview, like bringing up Li Yuanfang, but thankfully, the fatty mentioned a real historical figure. If that was the case, it meant that his knowledge could be put to good use. We are all familiar with Renjia. He was the prime minister during the Wuzhou dynasty. According to rumors, he was very good at solving cases. Mr. Yu started to ramble again. Why don't you finish the question? Feng Bujue roared. I'm sorry, Mr. Yu said. The question is, what is Di Renjia's zodiac sign? Huh? When Feng Bujue heard that, he was stunned. Xiao Tan and the rest wanted to help, but when they heard the question, they were all stunned. 45 seconds. Start now, Mr. Yu said, and at the same time, the sound of ticking came from the speakers at the venue. What kind of history is this? It's a math test, isn't it? Feng Bujue mumbled softly. Thankfully, Di Renji's birth and death years are all round numbers, so it's easy to remember. 630 to 700, and this year, 2055, is the year of the pig. 30 seconds left, Misty reminded, but his expression was relaxed. His zodiac sign is a tiger. Feng Bujue was unmoved. Without hesitation, he gave the answer quickly. Correct, Mr. Yu said. The audience clapped. Mr. Yu waved his hand, and the first question card was burned away by the fire. The second question. Mr. Yu turned to Xiao Tan. Participant number 2, you look so nervous. That was the first question really easy? Xiao Tan's face turned pale. Of course, Mr. Yu said with a smile. All right, please pay attention to the question. This is the question about sports. He looked at the card and read, please name any 3 players who have won the World Snooker Championship. He looked up at Xiao Tan. The time starts. Must I ask for the full name? Xiao Tan asked. Yes. Mr. Yu replied. Please note that you cannot get the answer wrong. If you get one wrong, you'll get all the answers wrong. Other than that, please hurry. Joe Davis. Xiao Tan named the one he was most confident about. Correct, 1, Mr. Yu said. Stephen Henley. Correct, 2, Mr. Yu reminded. 30 seconds left. Ding Junhui. Xiao Tan answered immediately. Mr. Yu was silent for 2 seconds. You are absolutely correct. Phew. Xiao Tan slumped over the control panel. There was a round of encouraging applause. That's why I said there's no need to be nervous. This question is super easy, Mr. Yu said. It's practically common sense. He moved the microphone away, cleared his throat, and then turned to Passing Rain. Participant number 3, please listen to the third question. After burning the second card, Mr. Yu looked at the third card and told Passing Rain, this is a brain teaser. Passing Rain did not show any expression, but Feng Bujue, who sat across from her, had a face that said, this is a free point. Excuse me, a chicken and a goose are placed inside a fridge. The chicken freezes to death, but the goose survives. Why is that? Mr. Yu asked. The time starts now. Because the chicken is excited? Passing Rain answered immediately. Unfortunately, wrong answer. Mr. Yu smiled. The correct answer is because it's a penguin. The audience sighed, and the score displayed on the outside of Passing Rain's console immediately became -10 points. Mr. Yu looked at the camera and commented, the answer given by participant number 3 sounds like the answer of a cold joke, but unfortunately, this is a brain teaser. TSK. So the answer is your own kind. Passing Rain scoffed coldly. The audience erupted in laughter. Mr. Yu took out his handkerchief and wiped away his sweat awkwardly. He turned around to face Laughing Soul and placed the fourth card before his eyes. Okay, participant number 4, please listen to the fourth question. This kind of difficulty is a piece of cake. Ask away, Laughing Soul said eagerly. This is a question about a game, Mr. Yu said. I'm sorry, but who are the commonly known trio of the grass? The time starts now. Laughing Soul blinked her large eyes, and her face was blank. Passing Rain could not help her, but Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji kept gesturing and mouthing the names of the 3. Hints are not allowed, Mr. Yu said. Mr. Yu said, if you really did tell her the answer, then you would have gotten the question wrong. Oh, I know, a 3-man team, right? A second ago, Laughing Soul had been pouting like she was at a loss of what to do, but the next second, she suddenly smiled. To everyone's surprise, her answer was, it's Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. Bang, bang. It was the sound of Brother Ju and Xiao Tan's faces hitting the control panel. The audience's glasses were all smashed to the ground. Wrong answer, Mr. Yu said. but this question might be a blind spot for the female participant. Therefore, Laughing Soul's score dropped to -10. All right, after the first 4 questions, let's take a look at the score, Mr. You said. Both male participants have positive 10 points, but both female participants have -10 points. He lifted his head. Let us invite our 3 guests to give their comments. The light and camera focused on the VIP section. Pride Queen turned her head to the side and scoffed. She looked like she could not be bothered to talk to Mr. You. Mr. Pestilence coughed and said, I think if we swap the questions of the male and female participants, perhaps they will both get positive points. Hephaestus mumbled to himself. If we put the Cyclops inside the fridge, the light returned to Mr. You. He shrugged helplessly and continued. Fine. Thank you for your comments. Now, he turned to Fong Bujue. The difficulty of the questions will increase. Fong Bujue nodded. How come I feel like my question is the most difficult in the first round? Fong Bujue complained expressionlessly. Mr. Yu ignored him and said, From this question onward, I will not give you the type of question. Please listen to the question. He held the card and read aloud. Excuse me, what is the 9th decimal point of pi? Which is pi? The countdown starts now. 3. Fong Bujue used 1 second to answer. Is that a wild guess? Mr. Yu asked. No, Fong Bujue answered. Very good, you got it right, Misty said. There was a round of applause from the audience, and Fong Bujue's score reached 20 points. A normal person will only remember 7 decimal places. Looks like the crazy contestant has memorized more, Misty said. It's okay. Fong Bujue was being humble. Actually, he had memorized 200 decimal places. He treated pi as a password library. He could pick a 6-digit, 8-digit, or even 10-digit number from the 200, and they could be used as a password. Looks like contestant number 1 is getting further and further away from the Colosseum. Mr. Yu looked at Xiao Tan with a wicked smile. Contestant number 2, please listen carefully. When Xiao Tan heard the increased difficulty, he was nervous. His expression was like a primary school student waiting in line for an injection. The question is, how old is a girl when she is of marriageable age? The countdown starts now. After Mr. Yu said that, he immediately turned to look at Fong Bujue. Do not try to use gestures or lips to remind me, or else contestant Wang's score will be deducted. Oh no, I don't know. Xiaotan glanced at his brother Ju, and the latter shot him a condescending look. Xiaotan thought, are you serious? It's normal not to know something like this. Why do you act like this is common knowledge? You have 30 seconds left, Misty Yu reminded him. Xiaotan felt like he would not be able to figure it out no matter how hard he tried, so he decided to make a random guess. 18. Wrong answer, Misty Yu announced with a big smile. Your score will be reset to 0. The next question came to passing rain. Misty Yu wiped his sweat and looked at the question card. Phew. Contestant number 3, how is it? Are you nervous? Passing rain did not answer. She mimicked pride and slowly turned her head to the side with a scoff. Mr. Yu looked like he had been dealt a heavy blow, but he had no choice but to continue. Okay, the 7th question. How many strings are there in the guzheng? The countdown starts now. 21. Passing rain answered very quickly. Correct, Mr. Yu said. He did not comment further lest he said something wrong again. The audience responded with applause, and then it was time for the 8th question, the last question of the second round. Contestant number 4, please listen carefully, Mr. Yu said. I'm sorry. What is the next line of the green hills are like waves crashing into Zhangzhou? The countdown starts now. 8 hills to the west of the Copper Sparrow Terrace, Laughing Soul said before he finished reading the question. Before the host announced the result, the audience was already clapping. Obviously, she was right. It looked like these questions about poetry were not only Fong Bujue's specialty. I'm correct. Mr. Yu smiled after he burned the question card. Our contestants this week are all very good. He smiled meaningfully. But eventually, someone will enter the Colosseum. Hugh. For this round, he did not have the guest comment anymore. Instead, he turned to Fong Bujue and asked the 9th question. Contestant number 1, please listen carefully. He looked at the question card. Oh, this is a special question. If you get it right, You'll get an extra 20 points, but if you get it wrong, 20 points will be deducted. You have to be careful. Chapter 126. Of course, since this is a special question with double points, it will naturally be more difficult. Please listen carefully. Mr. Yu raised the question card. Green Lantern. I believe everyone knows about them. He glanced at the camera. The source of their green light energy is mental power. He lifted his head to look at Feng Bujia. In the DC universe, green light represents mental power. So, what do the other colors represent? Please name at least 4 of them. And the countdown starts now. This kind of question was not going to stump Feng Bujia. Even if he was not there to collect material for his writing, he had read many of them out of interest. Therefore, he only needed to think about it briefly before answering. I will explain it according to the color. Red light, anger. Orange light, greed. Yellow light, fear. Green light, mental power. Green light, sympathy. Blue light, hope. Purple light, love. The last one is black, which represents death. The room was silent. Mr. Yu looked at the answer in his hand and was silent for a few seconds. Then he suddenly said in a firm tone, "You are absolutely correct." The audience erupted into a wave of applause that was second only to the opening of the show. Participant number 1 is so knowledgeable. After 3 questions, he already has 40 points while the other 3 participants have 0 points after 2 laps. Participant number 1 is practically undefeatable, Mr. Yu explained. Mr. Yu explained. He turned around to look at the VIP section. What do the 3 guests think of participant number 1's performance? After the camera was aimed at the VIP section, Miss Pride spoke for the first time that day. She only said 2 words. Otaku. Then she turned her head away and scoffed. Pestilence slumped in his seat and used his bony hands to prop up his cheeks. The skin on his hands was so white that it was almost transparent. One could see the blood vessels under his skin. This posture made him look even more haggard. Speaking of which, why is there not a single color that represents Pestilence? The cameraman, a translucent spirit, turned the camera to Hephaestus. The man's comment was still baffling. TSK, isn't it just some lanterns and rings that collect wandering energy? If you want to mass-produce those things, you only need enough Cyclops workers. All right, thank you for your comments. Before the man could finish, Mr. Yu cut in. He turned to Xiao Tan and said, "Participant number 2, please listen to the 10th question." He burned the previous question card and said to the next one, "Please spell it accurately in English, phenylketonuria." The countdown starts now. The ticking sound had just started when Mr. Yu turned around to interact with the audience. As we all know, in English, medical jargon is a very troublesome part. Those are long and hard to remember. Phenylketonuria, or PKU for short, Xiao Tan replied. Then, he spelled out the whole word letter by letter. Mr. Yu was startled for several seconds. He used his hand that held the microphone to push up the sunglasses that sat on his nose. He widened his beady eyes to confirm the answer on the question card. Correct. Xiao Tan's score was increased by 10 points, and the audience applauded. Looks like this question is related to participant number 2's field of expertise. Or perhaps his English is exceptionally good? Mr. Yu commented. That is actually quite simple. Before Xiao Tan finished, Mr. Yu raised his voice to say, then, next, Mr. Yu turned to passing rain again. Participant number 3, now only you and participant number 4 have 0 points. This question is very important. Oh, passing rain answered matter-of-factly. From her attitude, it was as if she was saying, it is not that big of a deal. Please listen to the question. Mr. Yu took the new question card to his eyes. After glancing at it, he said, please tell me, what does the chemical formula that appears on the screen represent? The countdown starts now. As he said that, the small screen on Passing Rain's panel and the big screen in the hall showed the same chemical formula. C6H12O6. Glucose. Passing Rain thought for a moment before replying. Correct, Mr. Yu said. Another round of cheers came from the audience. Looks like all of our participants are very good. Will the suspense be left until the last lap? Or will it be ended with the next question? Mr. Yu turned to Laughing Soul. Hey, Are you trying to tell me that my score will be negative after I answer this question? Laughing Soul narrowed her eyes and glared at Mr. Yu. Even if I really get negative points, I still have a chance in the next lap, right? Huh. I said that because Mr. Yu raised the next question card in his hand. This 12th question is another special question. There was an uproar in the audience. Please listen to the question. Mr. Yu read from the question card. Please name 3 players who have won the title of European Footballer of the Year in the 20th century. Their full names are not required, but the nationality of the 3 players cannot be repeated. The countdown starts now. Laughing Soul pouted again, and she looked like she was in a difficult spot. This question about sports might be very easy for the male participants. I believe if it was participant number 1 or participant number 2 who picked this question, these 20 points would have been given to them for free. Unfortunately, it is our female participant who has been asked this question, Mr. Yu said, and then reminded, you have 30 seconds left. Beckenbauer Platini. Laughing Soul actually named 2 names. So far, correct, Mr. Yu said. This is very interesting. The 2 names that participant number 4 mentioned were not only excellent players, they were both government officials in the past. Ronaldo. Laughing Soul said as if she was suddenly reminded of this name. Participant number 4, I have a question. Why would you think a Brazilian won the European Footballer of the Year award? Mr. Yu asked with a smile. Huh? Is he a Brazilian? Laughing Soul asked in return. Since you do not know him, why would you answer that name? Mr. Yu asked. Because I remember many soccer players with that name, so I thought perhaps one of them won the title of Mr. Yu. Laughing Soul answered. Mr. Yu nodded. Fine, no matter what, the answer to this question is correct. The audience clapped, and Laughing Soul's score shot up to 20. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the audience regardless of gender, Mr. Yu announced excitedly. This is the end of the first round. There are only 4 questions left. Let us take a look at the scores of the 4 participants. Participant number 1 is leading by a large margin with 40 points. Participant number 2 has 10 points, and he still looks quite nervous. The participant number 3 has 10 points as well. And participant number 4, with her lucky performance on the special question, currently has 20 points. The camera followed Mr. Yu's explanation and panned to the 4 participants one by one. Then, if there is no accident, the participant who will enter the Coliseum will be one of participants number 2, number 3, and number 4. Mr. Yu started to stir up the atmosphere and announced loudly, Now, please hold your breath and focus. We will enter the last 4 questions of the first round. He turned to Feng Bujue and picked up the question card. This question, he purposely paused, is not a special question. You mean it will not matter even if I get it wrong? Feng Bujue asked. That's right, but I have to remind you, at the end of every round, the player with the highest score will be given a mysterious advantage. Mr. Yu used the hand that held the card to make a 1 sign, and his tone was very suggestive. Advantage, huh? Feng Bujue said with some thought. In any case, you go first. Listen carefully. Mr. Yu said, the question is, there is a meaning in it, and the will is immortal. Are you familiar with the wonder and power of the will? God is a great will, and with his single-mindedness, he blesses all things. If a mortal does not have a weak will, they will never submit to an angel or the god of death. He paused. Who said that? The countdown starts now. Humph. At the end of the day, this is the last round. This question is very cunning. Feng Bujue scoffed. From his attitude, he appeared to be confident. At the beginning of Lydia, the author used this quote from Joseph Granville to fit the central idea of the whole essay. Then your answer is Joseph. Mr. Yu was about to say. Feng Bujue interrupted him. But he pointed at Mr. Yu with his finger. But the author of Lydia is Edgar Allan Poe. This drunkard cannot be trusted so easily. He smiled and said, Granville is a famous theist, and that's what Poe saw. In fact, the words just now were written by Poe himself. He made up these few lines, then put a dash and wrote Granville's name, making others think that he was quoting the works of his ancestors. But in fact, this is Poe's writing. Mr. Yu said, "So, your answer is?" "Without a doubt. Edgar Allan Poe," Phone Bujua said. "Absolutely correct." Mr. Yu waved his hand and burned the question card. The audience erupted in applause and cheers again. Phew! Mr. Yu sighed in relief. Participant number 1 has answered all 4 questions of the first round correctly, including a special question. So far, his 50 points are more than enough for him to clinch the first place. He turned to Xiao Tan. Then, what will happen to participant number 2? Xiao Tan was already covered in cold sweat. He laughed drily. "Ha ha ha! I've already prepared myself to go to that Colosseum. Is that so?" "Hew, hew, hew." Mr. Yu laughed. "But the questions for the last round are indeed quite difficult. So, please listen carefully." He looked at the question card and said, "We all know there's a fictional character called Kick-Ass. When he takes off his superhero costume, his identity is that of a student. If you don't mind, what is this student's name?" Mr. Yu put down the question card and looked at Xiao Tan. "The countdown starts now." When Xiao Tan heard the question, he was dumbfounded. He was a person who could not hide his thoughts. From the expression on his face, it was clear that he did not know the answer at all. Xiao Tan had watched the whole series of this movie more than once, but for some reason, he could not remember the main character's name. 30 seconds left. Mr. Yu reminded him as he turned to the audience. "Yes, I understand it from participant number 1's expression. He knows the answer, but unfortunately, this question will not be answered by him." The ticking continued, and Xiao Tan had no clue what was going on. 15 seconds left. Mr. Yu reported again. "Fine, I don't know." Xiao Tan could not stand the tense atmosphere anymore. He did not wait for the time to run out before giving up. The audience booed. Unfortunately, participant number 2's score has returned to 0. Currently, he has the lowest score, Mr. Yu said. Then he walked to stand before Passing Rain's panel. "Participant number 3, as long as you answer this question correctly, you will be safe. As long as participant number 4 does not run into another special question, even if she gets it wrong, the result will not change. In other words, this 15th question will most likely decide the result of the first round." Oh, Passing Rain's reaction was similar to the previous round. Mr. Yu's lips twitched twice. He had been talking for a long time, but the girl was still unmoved. He had no choice but to pick up the question card and ask, "The legendary 10 Kings of Hell, which 3 kings are the 2nd, 5th, and 10th kings?" The countdown starts. Before the man finished, Passing Rain gave the answer. King Chujiang, King Yinluo, and King Chakra. Mr. Yu burned the question card. Correct. The audience clapped. At the same time, the cameraman very cleverly aimed the camera at Xiao Tan, who was in the 2nd seat, and the camera captured a sour expression on his face. Mr. Yu returned to the middle of the stage to face Laughing Soul. Looking at the last question card in his hand, he said, "This 16th question." He purposely paused for a whole 10 seconds. The man seemed to have to pause for every word that came out of his mouth. "Is another special question." The audience quieted down again. Currently, participant number 4, Laughing Soul, has a score of 20, Mr. Yu said. If she answers this question incorrectly, her score will return to 0. His tone was slow and steady. The suspense will be left until the last moment. "Hey, Fatty, if both him and I return to 0, who will enter the Colosseum?" Laughing Soul suddenly asked. Fatty." Mr. Yu's face dimmed. "Fine, it sounds like she's calling me." He had no choice but to admit it. Other than him, there was only the cameraman in the middle of the stage. If the cameraman was placed on the scale, he would weigh about 21 grams. If there is a tie for first place, then there will be an extra question. Mr. Yu cleared his throat to hide his awkwardness. And if there is a tie for last place, then the 2 participants will enter the Colosseum together. Oh, Laughing Soul smiled wickedly. Then I will give up on this question." The audience gasped, and Mr. Yu merely smiled but did not say anything. On the other side, Phone Bujua looked at Laughing Soul and gave her a big thumbs up. 1. It was to praise her strategy and 2, it was to praise her for her loyalty. Xiao Tan was moved to tears. No matter what the Colosseum was, with 2 people going together, he would feel much better. You gave up without even hearing the question. Looks like there is no need for me to ask for your confirmation. Mr. Yu smiled meaningfully. Then, let's go to the Colosseum. Once he said that, Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul's seats started to spin and sink. After they descended into the dark space below the floor, the 2 were once again pulled away from their original seats by an invisible force. They returned to the 2 slides and started to move at high speed toward an unknown territory. The scene on the big screen changed at the right time, and a vast desert appeared in the shot. Not long after that, on this vast desert, Xiao Tan fell from the sky and landed on his back. Several seconds later, Laughing Soul also fell from the sky. Her feet landed firmly on Xiao Tan's stomach, and she landed safely. Who will be the first executioner to appear at the Colosseum today? Misty Yu said, even though the 4 of us are not that high level, when life forms of any level struggle at the edge of death, the viewing experience is unparalleled. He used a high-pitched tone to stir up the emotions of the audience. Or what will take on this bloody mission? He took a few steps closer and stared at the camera lens. The live music also became eerie and tense. Suddenly, Mr. Yu's expression shifted, and he said in a hurry, before that, those who are watching our show, please note that you can still use the interactive method at the bottom of the screen to send a message or log into our website to participate in the activity of guessing the final winner. You will have a chance to win a beautiful gift from Thriller Box worth 1,000 ghost coins. To make a trade, come to Thriller Box. To win a prize, watch Death Quiz. Thank you for your support. Hey, why are you interrupting the commercial at such a crucial moment? Feng Bujua shouted. Haha, looks like our participant number 1 is in too much of a hurry. Mr. Yu laughed. But before I announce the first executioner at the Colosseum, we will have our 3 guests give their comments on the contestants' performance in the first round and share their prediction of who the executioner will be. Once again, the camera panned to Pride. She arrogantly looked down at Fatty Yu from afar and said, if I were to comment, would you be able to find a corner and commit suicide? Why would you make such a request? Has your contempt for me reached such a level? Mr. Yu asked as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. I'm afraid that won't do. Humph. So Pride stopped talking. Then the camera panned to Hephaestus. It looked like the cameraman had seen through the plan and decided to have Pestilence, who was more reliable, speak last. Would the executioner be a Cyclops? Hephaestus's comment was as unreliable as ever. If it is, then go find a corner and commit suicide. Fatty Yu roared. Finally, the camera panned to Pestilence. He turned to Mr. Yu and slowly said, the performance of the first round basically showed their respective expertise. It is worth mentioning that participant number 1 is very well-rounded. As for the executioner, there is nothing to predict. Cough, cough. I'm a knight. Naturally, I already know what is in that desert, so I will let you, the host, make the announcement. Chapter 127. Okay, thank you, young Master Pestilence, for your somewhat serious review, Mr. Yu said. He opened his palm and pointed at the screen. Now let us reveal the answer. In the desert, Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul could not hear any sound from the set, and they did not see any cameras around them. How the image get there? Only God knew. Just now, after the 2 of them moved forward on their respective slides for a while, their vision suddenly turned white. The glaring sunlight broke through the darkness, and the surrounding temperature suddenly rose. It was as if they had fallen out of a spatial crack in midair. This desert appeared to be very calm. At a glance, there was nothing but yellow sand. There were no cacti, no animal bones, no rocks, and no oasis. The strangest thing was that in such an open place, there was no wind, and the desert in front of him was completely flat. There wasn't even a slightly higher sand dune in his line of sight. This condition is perfect for shooting. Laughing Soul placed her hand before her forehead and looked around. Xiao Tan smiled awkwardly and thanked her. Thank you for coming to accompany me. It's fine. This is part of the strategy. Since the fighting part can be shared by many people, we should make use of the rules. Who told you to be so stupid and weak? Laughing Soul replied in a helpless tone. She raised her hand and reached her index finger into her collar to loosen it. She was wearing a full Special Forces outfit, so naturally, she was feeling unbearably hot in this kind of temperature. Shouten did not mind Laughing Soul's evaluation of him. He knew she meant no harm. By the way, in this environment, where will the enemy come from? He lifted his head. The sun was high in the sky, and there were no clouds. The strong light made it hard for him to open his eyes. If it comes from the sky, will it be a monster like a giant black vulture? Based on what you said, if the monster comes from underground, it will be a giant bug. Laughing Soul asked. They had all guessed wrong at that moment on the set. Mr. Yu was at the reveal part. His next sentence was, he is from Cybertron. Sha, M.O., Lie, Tiger. A tsunami of cheers came from the audience. At the same time, Desert Tiger entered Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul's sight. He appeared in the distant horizon, approaching at an astonishing speed, leaving behind a trail of dust. When Desert Tiger appeared, its appearance was that of a giant mechanical tiger. Its metal body was covered in yellow and black tiger stripes. Although he hadn't gotten close, Xiao Tan had already visually estimated this monster from a distance, or rather, this transformer's body wasn't too big. It was estimated that it would only be 5 or 6 meters tall in its robot form. Bang! The gun was already fired. Shouten turned his head to look and realized that Laughing Soul was already on the ground. Her sniper rifle was ready, and the first bullet had been fired. In this windless, bright, and spacious gladiator arena, as a player who specialized in shooting, if he couldn't do something before the enemy got close to him, he would definitely fail. Even if he couldn't end the battle from a distance, he couldn't let the iron lump get close to him and scathed. With the perfect sniping conditions, Laughing Soul aimed at the man's head and fired. But it was a pity that her first shot missed the tiger head by a hair's breadth. Of course, this was because Desert Tiger was moving. If the man was stationary, with a sniper rifle with a scope, even a player with F and marksmanship would be able to hit him. This is so troublesome. Laughing Soul licked her lips. She readied the second shot and pulled the trigger. Bang! This time, the target was even closer. Through the scope, it was almost within reach. And this shot had indeed hit its mark. Perhaps it was a coincidence, or perhaps it was just luck. This time, not only was Desert Tiger hit, but the bullet also hit its left eye, leaving a black hole in the tiger's face. The moment the bullet hit, it even burst into a ball of sparks. However, Desert Tiger was not an organic creature, but a robot with life. So this kind of attack was not fatal. Bang! The third shot. After the shot, Laughing Soul did not even check to see if she had hit the target. She put the sniper rifle back into her inventory and took out a German MP-5 submachine gun. She raised the gun and took aim. Even though the gun was a store-bought gun, it was expensive. For a marksmanship player with a certain level of financial ability, this submachine gun was the best choice at the early stages of the game. It weighed less than 3 kilograms, had high firing speed, low recoil, high accuracy, and fast reloading speed. As a mature standard weapon, the MP5 was the first choice of many special forces in the world for a long time due to its reliability and excellent performance. Tat 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 tat. When Desert Tiger was less than 30 meters away from them, Laughing Soul started to rain down the bullets from her submachine gun. The third shot from her sniper rifle had hit the monster's chest, but the armor there was thicker, so the bullet did not penetrate it. It only left a bullet mark. Shouten also took out his Winchester and raised it before his eyes. Even though his heart was racing and his palms were sweating, he was not in a hurry to pull the trigger. After the training in several scenarios, at least Xiao Tan had a certain level of understanding of the characteristics of the weapons that he carried. He knew that the shotgun in his hand had to be fired at close range to maximize its power. If he fired from more than 10 meters away, even if it was not a transformer, but an old armored vehicle, he would not be able to cause much damage. The bullets from the MP5 landed on Desert Tiger's front, causing sparks to fly. However, It did not slow down the monster's speed. When it was about 10 meters away from the two players, its two hind legs kicked off, and it leaped into the air. The sun cast the shadow of a large tiger on the sand. In a few seconds that desert tiger was in the air, the shadow on the ground changed drastically. Obviously, desert tiger had changed shape in midair. The head that was originally in the shape of a tiger opened and twisted, and a robot head poked out from its torso. The four curved beast legs folded at strange angles, compressed, and extended. The mechanical arms inside the torso were exposed, and the tiger-patterned armor attached to the outer layer of the limbs like armor. The bullet holes that had hit his head earlier had been moved to insignificant locations. It looked like his tiger form was used for high-speed movement and for him to take a beating. The whole transformation process was complicated, but it was fast and clean. The tiger that leaped into the air turned into a robot warrior about 6 meters tall before landing on the ground. It charged at the two players. After the transformation, he spoke. An emotionless, mechanical voice said, "Humans erase, reconstruct." Chapter 128. For Desert Tiger, the nature of human beings was like the multiverse, chaotic and manic. They were driven by survival instinct, the desire to mate, and endless greed, and they would only bring about decay and corruption. Only by destroying and rebuilding them would order return to the light of day. Desert Tiger's attitude toward human beings was like a housewife with misophobia facing the stain on the stove. Once he saw a human, he would not hesitate to clean them clean. Boom. Desert Tiger's fist landed on the sand, and it stirred up a wave of sand. The impact forced Shout Tan and Laughing Soul back, and they stumbled a distance away. Even though they were not directly hit by the attack, the shockwave caused them to lose 8% of their life points, and they were inflicted with the effect of slow for several seconds. There was another round of cheers. It looked like the audience was very satisfied with the way this executioner greeted the audience. Thunderstrike, this is... Phone Bujue held his chin and looked at the live stream on the screen. He mumbled softly, "If the opponent is a transformer, then Xiao Tan's title skill, Bee's Sting, should be useless. It states that it comes with the effect of bleeding, so it won't change into something like oil leak or electricity leak when used on a robot." He titled his head. Laughing Soul's main weapon is a gun. Even though bullets are more useful than swords, facing this kind of opponent, it will be hard to deal with her. Then on the screen, Desert Tiger had launched his next round of attack. As a robot, seeing the humans before him open fire, if he did not use some heavy firepower, it would be embarrassing for him. A rectangular firing port popped out from each side of his knees, and with two whooshing sounds, two guided missiles flew at the retreating Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul. Boom! Boom! Two smaller explosions blasted out two sand pits and sent a lot of sand into the air. However, Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul were not hit directly. They managed to evade the attack and only suffered some damage from the shockwave. Therefore, missiles, be it intercontinental or miniature, could be used to attack large heat sources, but if they were used to attack living humans, they would not be able to track them. Using a machine gun would be more effective. "Hey, Mr. Yu." Phone Bujue moved the microphone away and whispered to Mr. Yu, who was not far away from him. "Do you mind if I ask, what is the basis for the allocation of the executioners at the Colosseum? Was it randomly assigned? Or is it based on the race, number, or score of the contestants?" Mr. Yu glanced at him and smiled. He did not use the microphone, but whispered back, "Just combine what you said. Hugh is based on the power level of those two." Phone Bujue probed. In other words, if contestant Wang had entered the arena alone, he wouldn't have met this guy. "Huh. Of course, there's a difference in power level between one person and two." Mr. Yu gave a definite answer. "I see," Phone Bujue said. "No wonder the fat guy used the phrase 1 versus 2 bloody mission. It seems that more people entering the arena won't bring any benefits. And if one enters alone, even passing rain won't gain any advantage because the stronger player will encounter the stronger monster." He thought about it for a few seconds. Considering the exhaustion of life points and stamina points, It seems like we should take turns to be the last in the quiz round. That way, we can share some of the pressure of the battle. Mr. Yu's yell into the microphone pulled Phone Bujua's attention back to the screen. Look, contestant number 4 is going to fight back. On the screen, Laughing Soul's small figure charged at the robot giant, and she was holding a gun in her hand. Shouten had no idea what Laughing Soul was up to, but he still gathered his courage and ran forward. He kept firing at Desert Tiger to provide cover. Desert Tiger saw his opponent charge forward instead of retreating, so he did not hold back. He swung his giant arm at Laughing Soul. Laughing Soul agilely rolled on the sand to avoid the attack. Then she stood up quickly, knelt on one knee, raised her arms, and aimed the gun at Desert Tiger's chest. Shooting at such a large target at such a distance, Laughing Soul would not miss. She took the risk to get close to the target because she could not afford to miss this shot. The body of the gun glowed with a blinding light, and then this spear did not make the sound it was supposed to make. Instead, the sound that rang out in the air was actually the long cry of an eagle hunting its prey. The bullet that flew out from the barrel glowed silver and morphed into a glowing silver-winged eagle in midair. It swooped at Desert Tiger's body. In the next second, Desert Tiger's chest seemed to have been hit by an RPG warhead, and an explosion occurred. This 6-meter-tall, several tons heavy robot was actually blown off the ground by the force of the explosion and fell backwards. Name: Goshawk breaks the Sky skill property. Active skill: disappears after one use skill type. Marksmanship effect: imbue the bullet with sorcery energy and fire, causing a large amount of explosive damage to the target. You have to use a handgun to activate this skill, and there must be at least one bullet in the gun. Consumption: 500 stamina points, 50% of maximum sorcery points learning requirement. Marksmanship E, sorcery F, level 10 and above remark. A simple and practical skill. Only basic sorcery knowledge is needed to understand the theory behind this skill. The more sorcery energy consumed, the stronger the attack. Gunners with weaker physical abilities would be paralyzed for a short period of time after making a move. The weapon that fired Goshawk Breaks the Sky will overheat and become unusable for the next 15 minutes. This was the skill that Laughing Soul had used. She had drawn this skill card several scenarios ago and learned it, but she had not had the chance to use it. It was obvious that this was a gamble. Facing the opponent before her, Laughing Soul believed that it was worth the gamble. Her analysis of the situation was accurate, and her action was decisive and effective. Rather than saving this move and being forced to use it when he was in a desperate situation, it was better to use it as soon as possible to decide the outcome of the battle. Even if she failed to kill the monster in one shot, with her life points, there was still room for her to turn the battle around. After firing that shot, Laughing Soul collapsed to the ground, unable to get up. She opened the game menu to confirm it and mumbled, "Tisk, I was indeed inflicted with the paralysis status." On the other hand, Desert Tiger did not stop for even a second. He was a robot, so he would not be like a human being who needed to catch his breath after falling to the ground. After he was shot, his chest was charred black, and the armor plate here was dented and cracked. However, the circuit in his brain used less than a second to calculate the damage and gave him a message: "I can still move." Therefore, he immediately climbed up from the ground. Bang, bang, bang. Shouten saw how bad the situation was. He reloaded and fired as he ran forward, but he was still not fast enough. Desert Tiger's iron fist the size of a refrigerator fell from the sky, and it was aimed at Laughing Soul from above. If the punch landed, there were only 3 words to describe what would happen next: human, meat paste, and white light. Laughing Soul knelt on the ground and saw the shadow coming at her, but there was nothing she could do. Her body refused to listen to her command, and she could not even roll to the side. She could only grit her teeth and prepare for the coming pain simulation. At that moment, a miracle happened. Desert Tiger's movements suddenly became sluggish. It was as if a high-speed camera had capture scene. Desert Tiger's fist approached at the speed of a tortoise. It felt like he wouldn't die even if he collided with it. The audience gasped in shock. Misty was someone who knew his stuff. "Oh, everyone, Please take a look. It seems like someone has used the sand of time nearby. No, it is just some time dust mixed with impurities. The real sand of time will have more than that. The camera turned, and the audience was shocked to see that it was Hephaestus who said that. So, he could get some serious comments. Shoughton held the Winchester in one hand, and his other hand was dripping with blood. He had no choice. To use the slowing sand, he had to shatter the glass bottle. He was surrounded by soft sand, so he had no choice but to use his bare hands to shatter the glass bottle. Desert Tiger's fist continued to approach, but the slowing effect helped Xiao Tan reach Laughing Soul's location. Without saying a word, he picked up his teammate and ran. He ran for a long distance. Idiot, where are you going? Take this chance to hit him. Laughing Soul saw Xiao Tan running further and further away like a pig carrying its wife. He had no intention of stopping, so she quickly shouted to remind him. Oh, understood. It dawned on Xiao Tan. He let go and tossed Laughing Soul to the ground. Then he turned and ran back to Desert Tiger. Several seconds after he left, Laughing Soul regained her mobility. She climbed up from the ground with a dark expression. She wiped the sand off her face and took a deep breath. This big idiot. I'll beat you until you scream for your mother in the killing game. Even though she was angry, she knew her priorities. Now was not the time to argue. Laughing Soul took out the sniper rifle from her inventory. In a few seconds, she was ready to attack and started to aim. Even though Desert Tiger was almost immobilized, she still chose to use the most powerful weapon she had on her. Xiao Tan, on the other hand, returned to Desert Tiger's feet. His body nimbly climbed up the robot's arm that had not fully retracted and rushed up to the robot's shoulder. Just as the sand was about to lose its effect, the barrel of the Winchester in Xiao Tan's hand was pressed against Desert Tiger's head from zero distance. Just as he pulled the trigger, Laughing Soul's sniper rifle fired as well. Chapter 129. A large chunk of Desert Tiger's head was knocked off by the Winchester, but the sniper rifle's bullet did not fly toward the head. Laughing Soul was aiming at the chest armor of Desert Tiger, which had been hit by Goshawk Breaks the Sky. The shot successfully drilled through the armor and hit his energy core. There was no explosion, and the monster did not put up any last struggle. Like a home appliance that had its power cut off, it lost its ability to move and stopped responding. Before Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul could relax, something else happened. The sun in the sky that blocked their eyes suddenly started to move at a speed visible to the naked eye. The fast movement of the light caused the shadow on the ground to elongate, and the temperature dropped. They lifted their heads to look and saw that the sky above them had been opened. The blue sky was like the lid of a shoe box, and the sun was like a light bulb that was placed inside the lid. But at that moment, the lid was being pulled off outside the sky at an extremely high spot. One could see the ceiling with a black and white checkered pattern. The light that came from an unknown source became like an artificial light source inside the room. It did not take long for a large, honest face to appear. It blocked out the sky and looked down at the two people on the sand. This scene was preposterous, but it also explained many things. A more accurate description would be, this Colosseum was a rectangular box. The bottom was flat, and it was covered with a layer of sand. The four walls and the ceiling were disguised as cardboard that looked no different from the real blue sky. Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul were like two ants placed inside the box, and Desert Tiger was just the size of a mini toy. But now, the person outside the box, Mr. Yu, had lifted the top of the box so the ants inside the box could see the ceiling and the light from outside. When Desert Tiger was killed, the big screen in the studio ended the live broadcast. Naturally, Mr. Yu was still standing on the stage. He had not left. Of course, as a demigod, it was not that difficult for him to appear in two different places at the same time. Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul saw the scene above them, and they were so shocked that they could not speak. Mr. Yu merely smiled at them. Then he used his chubby hands to pick up two toy phone booths and place them in the desert. He used a volume that Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul could accept to say, just go in. Then, he picked up the lid and replaced the sky. The two inside the box looked at each other, and it was Xiao Tan who spoke first. No wonder Brother Jew warned us not to mess around. The monsters in this scenario are not only numerous, but they are overpowered. Laughing Soul patted the sand off her face, put away her weapons, and replied, "There are too many strange things about this scenario. Until now, we haven't even received the main mission." That's right. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it. Xiao Tan replied. Anyway, let's do as he says. Laughing Soul had already walked to the phone booth that was closest to her. We should be able to return to the recording studio after we enter it. Phew, it's so hot here. Xiao Tan put away his weapons and walked into the other phone booth. Both of them were mentally prepared this time, so when they felt the ground beneath their feet suddenly disappear, they did not panic. They just naturally fell into the pitch-black environment. Then, they were pulled by the invisible force and returned to their seats along the slide. They spun and rose up, and once again arrived at the death quiz venue. Welcome back. Mr. Yu cheered excitedly. The audience cheered as well. Was it you as well? Xiao Tan asked. Of course it was me. If I wanna, I can appear in many places at the same time. That is not difficult. However, the process of me bringing the two of you back will not be broadcasted here. As Mr. Yu answered, he wandered to the camera. Dear viewers, if you are interested in my behind-the-scenes work, please send a message to the number at the bottom of the screen or log on to our website to participate in a live stream. At the last year of every 60 years, the show will pick out 600 lucky viewers to receive a limited edition video of our show. It will record some behind-the-scenes footage that you will not be able to see during the live stream. After that, Mr. Yu turned back to the VIP seats and returned to the topic. All right, regarding the performance of participants number 2 and number 4 in the Coliseum earlier, I wonder what the 3 VIP guests have to say about them. The camera panned to Pride, and she said directly, "All men should die." Well said. Laughing Soul mimicked Pride's posture. She crossed her arms before her chest and nodded seriously. Hey, what have I done? Xiao Tan shouted. There is not much to say about their ability. However, on 2 questions, brother number 2 made the worst choice. Pestilence's comments were always objective and logical. First, you shouldn't have crushed that glass bottle with your bare hands. Second, in reality, the last shot that you fired at Desert Tiger's head was useless. Even if you blew his head off, it would only have destroyed his information collection system. The real killer was the 2 shots from participant number 4. The first shot shattered the armor, and the second shot pierced through his heart. As soon as Pestilence finished speaking, Hephaestus, who was next to him, said, "I say, little brother, breaking the bottle is a very dangerous act. At this moment, the time dust has seeped into the wound on your palm." Hephaestus reminded him seriously. The time that belongs to your left hand has been overdrawn. If you don't treat it, your hand will soon turn into dust. Huh, that's serious? Even though Xiao Tan was confused, he felt like this was something very scary. It doesn't matter. At this moment, the entire audience, including Yu Xian and the 3 guests, all turned to look at the person who said those 3 words. Feng Bujue continued in a matter-of-fact tone. Consume 1 SCP-500 and it will be cured. Hugh. No wonder you're participant number 1. You came up with the solution so quickly. Mr. Yu laughed. Now, let us enter the second round of Death Quiz. The DJ played a short but powerful background music, and the lights returned to the center of the stage. The audience cheered and jumped for joy. It was a scene of a group of demons dancing wildly. All right, some of the audience, please calm down. Do not spit fire around you or in the air. The guy from D3, yes, it's you. Spit out the human monster next to you. Don't think I can't see you. Yes, thank you. Mr. Yu maintained the order and then turned to Feng Bujue. First, participant number 1. Do you still remember what I said? The participant with the highest score in the first round will gain a mysterious advantage. Chapter 130. Even if you forget, I will not forget, Feng Bujue replied lazily in his chair. Hugh. Then, Mr. Yu snapped his fingers, and the control panel before Feng Bujue and the seat he was sitting on started to move forward. Both of them were connected to the floor, but when they moved, the black and white checkered floor disappeared and reappeared like a virtual projection. It was not affected at all. The second round is a multiple-choice question, Misty said. The rule of this round is that the contestants will come forward to answer the questions one by one. Each contestant is allowed to answer at most 7 questions, and they will need to answer at least one question. He took out another stack of question cards from his pocket. The picture on the back of the cards was no different from the first round. After I finish reading the question, the contestants can press the button on the control panel to select the answer. Once they press the button, the answer cannot be changed. Phone Bujue asked, "Does that mean that if I get one question wrong, I will not be able to answer the next question?" "Yes, and the mysterious advantage that you obtained in the first round is..." Mr. Yu paused at the crucial moment, and the sound of rushing drums echoed through the hall. It sounded like the accompaniment of a trapeze artist's final jump. In the second round, you can choose to skip a question at any time and get extra points. Will the contestant with the lowest score still enter the Coliseum in this round? Phone Bujue asked again. The second round. Mr. Yu chuckled darkly. The contestant with the highest score at the end of this round will choose one person to enter the Coliseum. Is that so? Phone Bujue nodded. I understand now. Let's begin. Okay, please listen to the first question. Mr. Yu held the question card and said, "The score for this question is 10 points. I have a question. Einstein's birthday is A. March 13th, B. March 14th, C. March 15th, D. April 13th. After he asked the question, he turned to face the camera. We all know that the second round is the most crucial round. If the contestant can answer all 7 questions correctly, there is a high chance that they will gain a huge advantage in points. Phone Bujue was silent for a few seconds without expression before he interrupted Mr. Yu. "I want to skip this question and get extra points." The audience gasped. Mr. Yu smiled. "Really? Contestant number 1, do you want to use this chance on the first question? You should know that the questions will only get harder and harder." "Yes," Phone Bujue replied calmly. Bonus points." Mr. Yu burned the question card that he was holding, and before Phone Bujue's panel, the number on the screen changed to 60. Next, the second question is 20 points. If you answer correctly, you'll get 20 points. If you answer incorrectly, 20 points will be deducted. Mr. Yu smiled. Participant no. 1. Why would you use this advantage so decisively? In the past, the contestants who came to participate in our program would try their best to save this opportunity for later questions. "Because I don't know how to answer this question," Phone Bujue replied. "Why don't you guess? It's just a 10-point question." Mr. Yu asked. Phone Bujue replied, "This is a very simple mathematical problem. Assuming I don't know any of these questions, if I guess blindly from the first question, if I get it right, I'll get 60 points, and if I get it wrong, I'll get 40 points. But now, if I get it right, I'll get 80 points, and if I get it wrong, the result is the same as if I got it wrong from the first question, 40 points. It's the same 25% chance, and the risk is the same, but the reward is higher. So, of course, I'll use this chance to ensure that I get to the second question first." He paused. "Furthermore, if I do know how to answer the second question, then I won't need to guess anymore." Mr. Yu was startled by his explanation. The audience was silent for a few seconds before they erupted in applause and cheers. Phew! Participant number 1, is so calm even when he can't answer the question. Mr. Yu laughed. A burst of laughter came from the audience. This is called using the rules reasonably. Let's continue. Phone Bujue placed his hands behind his head and appeared very relaxed. Okay, participant number 1, starting from the second question, you can choose to answer it or not. Mr. Yu pushed the small, round sunglasses on his nose. He looked at Phone Bujue. Based on the theory you've given earlier, even if it's just a guess, you'll give it a try, right? Of course, Phone Bujue replied. Please listen to the question. Mr. Yu looked at the question card. On the 30th of April, 1943, a famous scam in history started. It was Operation Mincemeat. Excuse me, the body that was disguised as a major in the Royal Navy, his real name was A. William Martin, B. Samuel Jackson, C. Grindauer Michael, D. Charlie Sheen. Phone Bujue pressed the button for C without hesitation. Mr. Yu said, participant number 1, once the answer is pressed, it cannot be changed. Ah, I know, Feng Bujue replied. The nerve-wracking background music started again, and Mr. Yu looked at the camera with a serious expression. The correct answer is, what are you doing with that constipated look on your face? B and D are the names of the actors, right? Isn't William Martin the fake name used in Operation Mincemeat? Even people who don't know about Operation Mincemeat will choose the name that is more similar to the real name if they have to guess between A and C, Feng Bujue said. Participant number 1. Mr. Yu turned around with annoyance. How about you host this instead? Sure, let's switch seats. I promise I'll send you into the Coliseum, Feng Bujue replied. Oh, that's interesting. If Mr. Yu wishes to enter the Coliseum, why don't you pick one of the 3 of us to be the executioner? Pestilence, who sat at the VIP table, revealed an amused smile. Pride agreed. That's a good idea. You want me dead? Mr. Yu grumbled. Don't change the topic. I'm announcing the answer. It's C, isn't it? The audience hissed like they had already been exposed. Fine, since everyone knows the answer now. Mr. Yu's spirits were lifted. The answer is correct. 20 points added. The score on Feng Bujue's panel immediately turned to 80. Looks like this question is not that difficult for participant number 1 at all. Mr. Yu waved his hand to burn the question card. But the next question is worth 40 points. He purposely paused for a few seconds, and the camera panned to Feng Bujue. But Brother Ju did not have much of a reaction. Now, do you regret using the right to skip the question, participant number 1? Mr. Yu asked at the right time. Does that mean the score for the next question will double? Feng Bujue ignored Mr. Yu and continued on his own. Who knows? Mr. Yu also played dumb. Humph. Feng Bujue scoffed and answered the man's previous question. If you think you'll regret it, don't do it. If you do it, you won't regret it. Mr. Yu whistled, and the camera used the split screen to give both him and Feng Bujue a close-up. Then, participant number 1, do you wish to answer the 3rd question? Yes, Feng Bujue said. Please listen carefully. Mr. Yu looked at the question card and answered. Which of the following is not? Chi skill? A. God's flame. B. God's light. C. God's hand. D. God's punishment. This question was quite confusing. Most of Chi-Tini's skills started with God's hand. Feng Bujue could not give an answer immediately. He needed to search through the man's memory. Participant number 1, there is no need to rush. There is no time limit for the 2nd round, but normally, if you still can't answer after 3 to 5 minutes, I will count down from 10 seconds and let you pick an answer. After saying that, Mr. Yu turned his face to the center of the stage. How about we ask the other participants to share their thoughts on participant number 1's future in this round while he's still thinking? Of course, if any of you know the answer, don't try to give him any hints, or else he'll be disqualified. He turned to Xiao Tan. Participant number 2, how many questions do you think participant number 1 can answer? Xiao Tan had his head lowered to look at his left hand. So far, there was no obvious change to his hand. Asked by Mr. Yu, he answered without raising his head, I have no idea, but I have confidence in Brother Ju. He should be able to answer all the questions. Participant number 2, participant number 1 is currently leading in terms of points. If he can answer all the questions, then the highest score for the 2nd round will be decided early. What if he chooses you to go to the Coliseum? Mr. Yu tossed out a question that was rather difficult to answer. Xiao Tan raised his head to look at Mr. Yu. Then I'll go. If Brother Ju chooses me, then it means that this is the most logical course of action. Looks like participant number 2 has a lot of faith in participant number 1's intelligence. Mr. Yu commented before turning to Passing Rain. Then, I'd like to ask your asterisk. Passing Rain did not even give Mr. Yu a chance to finish. She gave him a I can't be bothered with you answer. Mr. Yu laughed awkwardly and turned to Laughing Soul. Then, participant number 4, do you have anything to say? Leader, if you can really answer all the questions, why don't you choose Xiao Tan? The words were directed at Feng Bujue, but Laughing Soul tossed a wicked smile at Xiao Tan. What have I done wrong? Xiao Tan asked innocently. If you've lost your left hand and have no luck with women, you'll have to rely on your right hand for the rest of your life. Feng Bujue grumbled weakly. Based on his calm demeanor, he probably already had the answer. Mr. Yu's eyes lit up, and he said, "Oh, participant number 1, that's quite an interesting statement. Can I use it in the future?" "Up to you," Feng Bujue said. "I've already made my choice. Give me the answer." Mr. Yu bent down to look at the answer on the first panel. Feng Bujue had pressed the D button. "Okay, participant number 1's answer is D, the judgment of God." Mr. Yu started his usual hosting trick. He did not finish the sentence. Whenever he reached a key point, he would pause for as long as he could. This answer. Chapter 131. Correct. Mr. Yu waited for a long time before announcing the result. The score on the panel continued to increase, and Feng Bujue's score had reached 120 points. The audience cheered and clapped. The sound engineer played a fast-paced soundtrack, and the lights flickered. "Haha, looks like participant number 1 is getting better," Mr. Yu said with a smile. Then, the next question he will face is the 4th question. He burned the question card for the 3rd question and glanced at the new question. With a wicked smile on his face, he turned to Feng Bujue and announced, "This question is worth 120 points." The audience gasped, and even Xiao Tan and the rest were shocked when they heard that. Participant number 1, the 4 of you. Mr. Yu looked around. The goal of the 4 of you is survival, not competition. In the 2nd round, it is not important who wins. The real key is who the winner will choose to go to the Colosseum, Mr. Yu said. The points for participants number 2, number 3, and number 4 are respectively 0, 20, and 0. In other words, you now have a huge advantage. As long as they all give up during the 2nd question, you will be guaranteed the 1st place. You mean there's no need for me to continue with the risk of my score returning to 0? Feng Bujue asked. "Ha! I am just helping you analyze the situation. If you are the one responsible for coming up with the plan, I believe your teammates will be more than happy to cooperate." "You mean teammates?" "Ha! Since you know from the beginning that our goal is to survive and not fight for the 1st place, then..." Feng Bujue's expression shifted, and he tossed a wicked smile at the man. It was as if he was really possessed by Joker, and his tone changed as well. "Then I wish to ask, is there any meaning to the arrangement where only the winner gets the prize? We are a team. Does it matter who gets the prize?" That. Mr. Yu stuttered. It was not that he was stumped by the question, but that he did not want to answer. Also, as long as you give a hint to the other contestants, the contestant who answers the question will have their points deducted. This rule is obviously designed for teamwork. If it's a competitive game, players won't give each other hints, so there's no need for such a restriction. Feng Bujue scoffed coldly. If it's not too much trouble for me to come up with this hypothesis." He raised one of his arms to point at the title of the show that was displayed on the big screen. Death Quiz, on the surface, is a game where 4 contestants compete for the 1st place, but in reality, it is a team survival game. Feng Bujue straightened up in his seat and adjusted the microphone. Every round, someone will enter the Colosseum, but that might not lead to death. The Colosseum is merely a trial at the end of every round. Those who do not get the highest score have a chance of entering it. To put it simply, it doesn't matter if you can't answer the question. Those who are good at fighting will still be able to enter the next round. Feng Bujue titled his head and placed his elbow on the console. He stared into Mr. Yu's flickering eyes. "So, what we have been through so far is merely a preparation and accumulation for the final round of this game. Perhaps that will be the 3rd round, the 5th round. I have no idea. In any case, the real death quiz is only at the final round, and then..." Feng Bujue leaned back in his chair. "The points that we have accumulated so far will play a very important role that I am not aware of yet." The audience was completely silent. Other than the monsters that would occasionally make noises, such as the hiccuping monster, the audience was completely silent. Mr. Yu held the microphone, and the lighting technician shone a bright beam of light on him. He walked to stand before the camera, and his face lit up with excitement and a smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, participant number 1." This time, Mr. Yu's voice was very soft, but due to the silence, Everyone could hear him clearly. He has guessed the change to the rules of the third round. He suddenly raised his voice. This is unprecedented. Let's give him a round of applause and cheers. The audience cheered. There was applause, whistling, and wailing. There was even the wailing of werewolves. Mr. Yu shuffled his squat body back to Feng Bujue's console. Unfortunately, I am unable to tell you the actual rules of the last round. I believe I know enough, Feng Bujue said. In any case, the fourth question, 120 points, I choose to answer. Please listen to the question. Mr. Yu raised the question card. Of the following four characters, who is the wealthiest? He paused. A. Tony Stark. B. Bruce Wayne. C. Uncle Scrooge. D. Forrest Gump. Feng Bujue immediately pressed the C button. Mr. Yu asked slowly, Your answer is Uncle Scrooge? Of course, that duck is not in the same league as the other three. Answer. After the expected pause, Mr. Yu said, correct. Feng Bujue's score reached 240 points, and the audience cheered. Mr. Yu burned the fourth question card. He glanced at the fifth question and said, Participant number 1, if I tell you now that the fifth question is very, very difficult to answer, will you give it up? Why don't you tell me the score for this question first? Feng Bujue naturally would not be tricked so easily. The value of this question is... Mr. Yu's expression suddenly turned strange. 1,000 skill points. The audience and guests did not react much, but when the four players heard that, they all had looks of disbelief. What? Skill points? Feng Bujue asked probingly. Of course, what skill points are you talking about? Mr. Yu shrugged and smiled at the camera. The audience also burst into laughter. I want to answer it, Feng Bujue said firmly. Tell me the question. He thought that in this scenario, skill points were a normal concept. Humph! Mr. Yu scoffed and picked up the question card. So far, you have only received one type of terror rating in Thriller Paradise. What did you say? Feng Bujue widened his eyes and almost instinctively interrupted Mr. Yu. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Mr. Yu asked in a relaxed tone. What is going on? Feng Bujue asked as he tried to stand up, but Mr. Yu waved his finger lightly, and an invisible force pressed him back into his seat. Who told you to stand up? Mr. Yu used the tone of an adult lecturing a child. Let me finish the question first. At that moment, Xiao Tan, Laughing Soul, and Passing Rain felt an indescribable pressure. The atmosphere of the stage changed. It became oppressive and scary. Mr. Yu continued to read the question that he was holding. So far, you have only received one type of terror rating at Thriller Paradise. I'm sorry, but that is A. Embodiment of courage. B. Commendable courage. C. Lost in panic. D. Heart trembling. Feng Bujue looked at Mr. Yu with suspicion. He slowly reached out his hand and pressed the button for option A. Before Mr. Yu announced the answer, he heard the system announcement. You have obtained 1,000 skill points. Could you be an anomaly? Feng Bujue asked in a whisper. That was his first reaction, but he was wrong. You suspect that I am a creature of a lower dimension than you? Mr. Yu said with a smile. Ha ha, can you stop joking with me like that? He burned a question card and took out the next one. The sixth question. The reward for answering it correctly is a pass to the inner world of Thriller Paradise. As he spoke, he moved his fingers, and a small black card appeared between his index and middle fingers. If you answer incorrectly, your sorcery weapon will disappear. Feng Bujue's brain was spinning rapidly. Since he entered the scenario, various anomalies had been accumulating, and at that moment, everything seemed to have undergone a qualitative change. Enough! An unfamiliar voice spoke. It was a man in a suit with brown hair. He suddenly appeared in the middle of the stage and stood 1 meter behind Mr. Yu. In that moment, Mr. Yu's expression froze, and the smile froze on his face. The three people in the guest seats looked as if they were sitting in the office making jokes when they suddenly saw their leader come in. Their sitting postures and expressions all changed. The audience at the scene was stunned. The bomb called fear had been set up, and they were waiting for that spark to ignite the whole place. Simon stood behind Mr. Yu and looked down at the fat man's neck. Do you plan to talk to me with your back facing me? Ha! Ha! I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Mr. Yu's sweat slid down his cap like a waterfall. Nervousness and fear were written all over his face. Simon then turned his gaze to the cameraman. He did not say a word, just a look, and the translucent spirit let out a painful wail. His body was covered in a layer of strong light, and then he exploded like fireworks, his soul dispersing. Naturally, the camera before him was blown up as well. "Scum, get out of here!" Simon used a voice that was neither too loud nor too soft, and in a tone that brooked no argument, he said that in the middle of the stage. The fiendish creatures in the auditorium screamed like pigs being slaughtered, as if they had just seen a ghost. They scrambled and scrambled toward the exits. For a moment, smoke and dust were billowing, and flesh and blood were flying everywhere. The frames of the exits were basically broken. Some even broke through the walls and escaped through the ground. In less than 30 seconds, only the 4 players, Simon, Mr. Yu, and the 3 VIP guests were left in the studio. "Long time no see, Brother Simon." "Ha ha ha." Hephaestus laughed and tried to get closer. Simon merely replied softly, "Oh, it's you? How is the product that I ordered?" "Air." "You know that, Brother Simon. It is very troublesome to create a weapon that suits you. Furthermore, didn't we agree to deliver the goods before the end of the 21st century? But it looks like you have a lot of free time on your hands," he interrupted. "Understood. Understood. I will disappear now." "Ha! Do as you wish." "Ha!" Hephaestus said that and really disappeared. "I didn't expect you to come to an event like this." Simon moved his gaze back to Pride. "Humph," she scoffed. "You sure are a busybody." "I am here on official business," Simon replied. "If you have something private to tell me, humph." Before he could finish, Pride morphed into a puff of black smoke and left. "Why are you looking at me?" Next, it was Pestilence's turn to meet Simon's gaze. "I just want to watch without saying anything." "Can't I?" "You've placed your bet," Simon replied. "Most of the high-ranking members have already placed their bets." Pestilence put on an innocent look. "I am the judge," Simon said. "That is because no one can beat you in a fight, but—" "There is a but?" Simon repeated darkly. "Fine, fine. I was wrong. Fine, I will leave." Pestilence coughed twice and morphed into a ray of black light. Simon's gaze returned to Mr. Yu. "All right, can you please explain? What is the meaning of this?" "Air. Big brother, do you mind if I ask what is going on?" Fong Bujua waved at Simon and interrupted with a sincere expression. Simon glanced at Fong Bujua and snapped his fingers. 1 second later, the bottle of SCP-500 appeared in his hand. He tossed the bottle to Fong Bujua and said, "You have cleared the scenario." Fong Bujua caught the medicine bottle that flew at him. Without looking at its attributes, he asked, "What is going on here?" "This scenario. Don't worry. I promise this will not happen again, at least not in a short period of time." After Simon said that, the 4 players dissolved into white light and were forcibly teleported away. In a login lobby, Fong Bujua opened the team channel. "Have all of you been teleported away as well?" Xiao Tan answered, "Yes." "What was the situation in the scenario earlier?" Laughing Soul's voice appeared. Passing Rain said, "It seems like there was some conflict between the bosses in the scenario, and they chased us away." "That's weird," Xiao Tan said. "The mission completion rate is 0/00, but the reward for clearing the scenario is so complete. Is this some kind of bug?" Fong Bujua said, "That man in the suit who suddenly appeared, from his tone, he sounded like a GM. Perhaps something big has happened to us." "Then what should we do?" Xiao Tan asked. "What do you mean, what should we do? Didn't we get the reward for clearing the scenario? Even if you ask customer service, they probably won't know anything. You can't complain that we cleared the scenario halfway through, right?" Fong Bujua said, "Don't you think all the terror rating so far is embodiment of valor?" Passing Rain suddenly asked, "Leader, you're not cheating, are you?" Laughing Soul asked, "Ah, about that." Fong Bujue really did not know how to answer that question. He was not that close to these 2 girls. They were just friends that he had not met for long in the game. Should he confess to them that he was suffering from some unknown brain disease? However, he thought about it from another perspective. If he came up with an excuse, even if the excuse was temporarily valid, perhaps they would get the truth from Xiao Tan. After some deliberation, Feng Bujue said, I'm not cheating, and of course, I'm not injected with some kind of tranquilizer to play the game. I just don't feel fear. Once that was said, Passing Rain and Laughing Soul naturally wanted to ask more questions. Before they could ask, Feng Bujue said, but as for why that is, forgive me for not being able to tell you, and please don't ask Xiao Tan. Consider this a bit of my privacy, and I hope you can keep a secret. After a period of silence, Passing Rain said, Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Hearing that, Laughing Soul added, I have no problem with that. Don't worry, I'm a tight-lipped person. Thank you. Then, why don't we call it a day? Feng Bujue asked. Okay, I'm a bit tired, so I'll be going now, Xiao Tan replied. Passing Rain and Laughing Soul also said that they were going to go offline. The four said their goodbyes and left the game. Several minutes earlier, at the recording studio of Death Quiz, Mr. Simon looked at Simon. Simon looked down at Mr. Yu. Who gave you the permission to bring them into Death Quiz? Are you planning to give up on this show? They're just virtual projections. They won't really die. Mr. Yu seemed to want to explain. What were you trying to do earlier? Simon asked. It was Woody who broke the rules first. He allowed Feng Bujue to enter the world of Pai Li when he was only around level 10, and it was that easy for him to get the sorcery weapon, Mr. Yu explained. You mean, you're helping me correct the consequences of breaking the rules? Simon asked. Mr. Yu's face blanched. He knew that there was a very dangerous trap hidden in this question. If he answered yes, it would mean that he was exercising his power as a judge. With Simon's personality, as long as he was given a valid reason, he would not hesitate to kill a real god, much less a demigod. No, Mr. Yu said, that is not what I meant. You gave him 1,000 skill points and then prepare to take away his sorcery weapon. You think that will solve the problem? Simon asked. What do you think Woody would do if he knew what you were up to? Mr. Yu was speechless. Simon said coldly, he would not hesitate to toss the person you bet on into the territory of a level 1 anomaly and force him to drop 10 levels. But, Mr. Yu wanted to say something else. There is nothing wrong with Feng Bujue getting the sorcery weapon. With his power level, there is no need for him to wait until he's level 30 to get it. That is my judgment as the judge, Simon said. From this moment onward, it is time for you people to stop your dirty tricks. He scoffed. I have completed the modification to the system. The backdoor left behind by Woody is no longer there. You people will not be able to interfere with this anymore, not even for a second, Simon said as he walked toward the main camera on the stage. He stood in front of the camera, and his gaze was as cold as a blade. The bet has just officially begun. Whoever dares to put his hand on the table will have his hand chopped off. Chapter 132. Is your hand okay? Feng Bujue asked. Of course it's okay. Even if it was, it would be a problem with the game character, Xiao Tan replied. Brother Ju, did you call just to ask me this? I'm still on duty. It was the afternoon of the next day. Feng Bujue was at home talking to Xiao Tan. Of course not. I'm just asking. Feng Bujue immediately got down to business. It's like this. Today, I went out to talk to the editor about a collaboration that has nothing to do with writing. What is it? The day after tomorrow, which is this Saturday, I'm going to the TV station to record a show. The traffic there is inconvenient. You should be off that day. How about you be my driver? Feng Bujue said. Xiao Tan was stunned for a moment, then shouted, what are you doing? Feng Bujue's tone was still quite normal. Did you eat the bacteria petri dish like jelly when you're distracted? You're finally going to be on TV, Brother Ju. Are you going to be popular? Xiao Tan asked excitedly. No. You can finally make money without doing anything. You sound like you're saying that I'm going to be in another industry. What I mean is that you can finally live on royalties like those big writers. You don't have to worry about writing every month. That's why I said no. Feng Bujue said, nothing will change. You're overthinking it. Xiao Tan was so excited that he completely ignored Feng Bujue's denial. He asked again, right? What show is it? Brother Ju. I'm a writer. he replied calmly. Ah, I know. I'm asking what show you're going to be on. I'm a writer, Fong Bujue repeated. Huh? Xiaodan seemed to have short-circuited again. Sigh. Fong Bujue sighed deeply. That show is called I Am a Writer. It's a variety show where the contestants compete to eliminate each other. Oh, who else is going to participate besides you? Xiao Tan said. I don't know, and I don't care, Fong Bujue replied. Xiao Tan slammed the table and laughed. Ha ha, Brother Ju, you're really domineering. I don't know if it's because the information of the other contestants is confidential. Fong Bujue said, I don't want it because it's useless even if I do. Personally, I hope to be eliminated in one round so that I don't have to go again. Don't. It's a rare opportunity to be on TV. I don't like to appear in crowded places, and I don't want to leave too much video data. Fong Bujue said, it's because the appearance fee is quite high. That's why Brother Ju, did you tell Master Bao? Xiao Tan said, no. Even if I told him, you would have called him anyway, so I'll leave it to you to tell him. Fong Bujue paused and said, let me emphasize, you can just talk to Master Bao about this. Don't spread it around. Why would I? Xiao Tan raised his voice. I remember when my first book was published, even the owner of the fruit store 5 or 6 streets away from your house knew about it, Fong Bujue said. Ha, about that then, it's settled. Drive me there on Saturday at noon, and then you'll have nothing to do. Because I don't know how long the recording will take, I'll go back by myself after it ends. Anyway, I still have money in my transportation card, Fong Bujue said. Can I go in and watch? Xiao Tan asked. No. Really? No. Okay. Xiao Tan said disappointedly. When will the show be broadcast? I don't know. Forget it. I'll look it up on the internet. You continue to be on duty. I'll talk to you tonight. Fong Bujue maintained a weak tone from beginning to end. Okay, bye. Bye. After the phone call ended, Fong Bujue sighed deeply again. Well, I can only pray that this kid will stop before he goes too far. 2 hours later, someone knocked on the door. Fong Bujue answered, coming. He walked to the door. Unexpectedly, as soon as he reached the door, the person outside opened the door with a key. I say, Auntie Lu, if you're not going to wait for me to open the door, why did you knock? Fong Bujue asked. The landlord, Auntie Lu, was standing at the door. You young people have privacy. What if there's a girl in your house? What if you're doing something shameful? So I knocked first, and when I heard you say yes, I knew I could come in. What you said is contradictory, and your logic can easily lead to misunderstandings. Don't talk to me about that. Auntie Lu looked at him up and down. I heard, they're going to shoot a movie? The first word that came out of Fong Bujue's mouth was F***CK, but he just sighed and replied, Who told you that? I heard it from Annie Wong at the market. Auntie Lu began to talk nonstop. Hey Fong, my granddaughter is 10 years old this year, and she's very talented in acting. Fong Bujue really wanted to bang his head on the door frame. Auntie Lu, first of all, I'm just going to the TV station to record a variety show. It'll only take a few hours. When the show airs on TV, it'll be edited into a few dozen minutes, and my scenes will only add up to a few minutes. He took a deep breath and continued. Second, even if I'm going to shoot a movie, I don't have the ability to arrange for your granddaughter to act in it. I'll have to find a producer. Is that so? Auntie Lu was stunned. How come I heard from the neighborhood security guard that you're going to write, direct, and act in it yourself? For what she said, it seemed that there were more than 1 or 2 people who were spreading false rumors. Okay. You're overthinking it. Fong Bujue quickly waved his hands. Rumors. Pure rumors. I'm not doing that for a living, and I'm not interested in entering the entertainment industry. I'm just going to participate in a variety show, the kind with awards. Oh, Auntie Lu nodded. Hey, Fong, when will the show air? What do you want to do? What's wrong? It's rare for an acquaintance to appear on TV. Can I take a look? Okay. Fong Bujue didn't know what to do with her. I'll record on Saturday, and I'll ask the program crew after I'm done. Don't worry, in a few days, I'll send you this month's rent, the money I owe on the cat, and the news of the show. Is that okay? Then it's a deal. I'll wait for your news. Auntie Lu replied. Okay. See you later. Feng Bujue coaxed and pushed her away and closed the door. He leaned against the door and sighed. The efficiency of spreading rumors is amazing. In another 48 hours, I think people will believe that I'm going abroad to win an Oscar. He shook his head, went back to his room, and bolted all 3 locks behind the door, including the chain lock. Then he went to the game cabin, took off his shoes, and lay down. Chapter 133. Your terror rating is Embodiment of Valor. Extra reward obtained. Please choose later. Obtained skill points. 0 additional bonus from skill points. EXP. 0. Game coins. 0 scenario cleared reward. Skill card X1 calculation complete. Please continue. After Feng Bujue logged in, he first looked at his previous rating. The reward that he got after completing Death Quiz could be said to be very small. The final skill points that he got from completing the Death Quiz were 0. The 1,000 skill points that he got from completing the Death Quiz did not appear in the rating, but it had been added during the course of the scenario. Currently, Feng Bujue had 2,580 skill points. He had no idea what he would get from the skill card, but the biggest reward from this scenario was undeniably the bottle of SCP 500 that contained 20 pills. Item name, SCP 500 2020. Item type, consumable quality, perfect function, can cure all negative and abnormal conditions. Remark, click to open the details. The item's remark was a link. After Feng Bujue clicked on it, a window related to the item popped up on the menu. Item code, SCP 500. Item classification, safe special storage method. SCP 500 has to be stored in a cold and dry environment away from strong light. To prevent abuse, SCP 500 is only allowed to be used by level 4 employees with permission. Description: SCP 500 is a small plastic bottle that contains several red pills. Each pill will cure all diseases within 2 hours after ingestion. The duration of the treatment depends on the user's actual condition. Even though many experiments have been conducted, attempts to artificially synthesize the main ingredients of SCP-500 have all failed. That was not all. As he continued to read, he saw many records and appendices. They were basically records of past experiments that had used this panacea and their results. Just as Mr. Yu said, this medicine could cure all diseases. In a way, it had gone beyond the concept of cure. For example, one of the records stated that this medicine could cure infected zombies and turn them back into humans. After reading the content, Feng Bujue pocketed the item. He had dabbled in the design of SCPs before, so he had a general idea of the effect of this potion. The reason he was looking through the description was because he wanted to see how the item would change in Thriller Paradise. The result reassured him. It looked like no matter how Xiao Tan's left hand was affected, a single red pill would be enough to cure it. Then, Feng Bujue went to the storage room to receive his reward. Due to the fact that he had drawn a series of deceptive items, he had a new understanding of his own luck. Sometimes, it was useless to comfort oneself with words like probability. Bad luck was just bad luck. To be able to catch up with a strange disease that no one in the world had ever contracted, was it still possible to rely on luck to draw perfect grade equipment in the game? Therefore, Feng Bujue obediently chose the EXP reward. His current EXP limit was 15,000, and 40% of it was 6,000 points. With this EXP, he successfully reached level 16. Then, he went to another glass column and drew a skill card. Name: Shadow of the Devil Bat Skill Card Property. Active, permanent skill type. Sleuthing effect. Cooldown time: 5 seconds. Can only be activated when running forward at high speed. For 3 seconds after activation, the player will gain the cover of double afterimages. Before the skill ends, the player will be able to pass through the target obstacle directly in front of them. If the obstacle is a wall, when the player runs into it, there must be a gap that is wider than the player's shoulder in a fan-shaped area of 2 meters before the player to pass through it. A completely sealed wall will not be able to be passed through if the height of the player is more than 3/4 of the player's height. Consumption: 100 stamina points. Learning requirement: Sleuthing E. Fighting Erie Mark. This is the signature skill of an American football running back known as number 21. Using the movement of the body's center of gravity and the change of footwork, the player creates a double image in the opponent's vision and thus bypasses the opponent's obstruction. A skill that allows one to move and evade at high speed. Fong Bujua used his left hand to hold his right elbow and his right hand to touch his chin. I feel like it's a waste for me to learn this skill, he mumbled. This skill seems more suitable for Xiao Tan. His fighting mastery is level D, but his sleuthing mastery is only level F, so he can't learn it yet. Laughing Soul's sleuthing mastery is level E, but her fighting mastery is only level F. Currently, only Passing Rain and I meet the requirement to learn this skill. He thought about it and decided to place the skill inside the guild storage. He would discuss it with his teammates at night. After claiming the reward, he placed the skill card inside the guild storage. Fong Bujua planned to explore the thriller box again. By then, he had accumulated quite a number of skill points. It was more than enough for him to purchase items and equipment that were usable below level 20. Fong Bujua had gotten used to the room filled with twisted mirrors and a large box in the middle of the room. He opened the menu with familiarity and browsed through the items inside the thriller box according to their category. He first searched for legendary items, but of course, he just wanted to take a look. This mentality was similar to women shopping. They would linger at the luxury stores like a beast eyeing its prey, but that did not mean that they would go out to buy anything. Men would be in a similar situation. When they browsed through the items, out of curiosity, everyone would want to look at the best and most expensive item. After all, there was nothing to lose by looking. Wow, there really is one. Fong Bujua searched according to the item's quality, and to his surprise, he really found a legendary item. Name: Iron item type, weapon quality, legendary offense points, unknown element, none special effect, none equip requirement, fighting A, sorcery A, summoning C, and level 40 and above. Remark: a legendary blade, forged by the Knife and Blade House. Its material is the Fong of the Great Demon, the Hound General. After injecting spiritual energy into it, the Iron Suya will transform into its basic battle form, the Sword of Fangs. Based on the user's spiritual energy level, skill level, and familiarity, the Iron Suya can transform into many forms. Each form has its own unique attribute and special effect. From the current item description, other than the extremely high equipment requirement, the other aspects were still unknown. Perhaps only by holding the weapon in one's hand and using spiritual energy to change its form would one be able to see the change in attribute. However, based on the price, at least Fong Bujua believed that no one in the game would be able to afford this item. The price of this Iron Suya was as high as 90,000 skill points. Skill points were a currency that could not be traded. To accumulate 90,000 skill points, other than the player's skill level, the game time was crucial. The items in the thriller box could only be kept for 7 days, so the Iron Suya before Chenggu would definitely be deleted. Of course, if the Iron Suya appeared in a scenario in the future and no one took it out when the scenario ended, it would still appear in the thriller box for another week. That would depend on how the scenario was generated. After looking at the legendary equipment, Fong Bujua started a search for the items that he needed. He thought about it. When it came to mid-range combat, Death Poker was an irreplaceable weapon. With this sorcery weapon, even the marksmanship mastery level did not matter. Furthermore, he still had the M1911A1 pistol as a standard long-ranged weapon, so there was no need for him to buy more firearms. In terms of melee weapons, he could consider it. After all, the wrench was not meant to be used to kill people. In the middle of the game, the more formal fighting skills should be used with weapons like knives, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, and forks. Using the wrench as the main close combat weapon was unrealistic, and it was detrimental to the growth of the fighting mastery. As for the folding stool, it was not worth mentioning. Other than that, he could consider buying some armor. The biggest advantage of the Echo armor that had been in his inventory for a long time was that it only took up the space of his belt when he equipped it. The description of the armor said, when the user opens the belt, they will gain an invisible armor of sound. Since it was an invisible armor, it meant that other than the belt, the player could equip their torso, legs, and other body parts with tangible armor to form a double layer of protection. Therefore, Fong Bujue's main search was for melee weapons and armor. After 20 minutes of browsing and comparison, he found something that was more suitable. From the appearance, it was a steel knife about 60 centimeters long. Item name: Robot Must Die. Item type: Weapon quality: excellent. Offense points: medium element. Electricity special effect: when attacking mechanical enemies, the damage is greatly increased. Equip requirement: level 15. Remark: in the life of the legendary dwarf craftsman, or Must Die, there were many embarrassing stories, and almost every story ended with the creation of a weapon. For example, the most infuriating and embarrassing time was when he was on vacation at Cake Mountain, but he was played a badger game. Later, he found out that the opponents were two robots who could change their appearance at will. Not long after, he created this steel knife. Chapter 134. Fong Bujue had met the requirements to equip this weapon. Compared to the wrench, both had average attack power and came with additional attributes. In terms of special effects, the wrench would be more effective against humanoid creatures, but this steel knife would be more effective against mechanical monsters. Fong Bujue believed that compared to the wrench, the steel blade had two advantages. First, it was a proper weapon with a blade, and its attack range was larger. Second, it was also a piece of equipment that came with an element. The electric element could not only counter machinery, it could also paralyze living creatures. Other than that, this weapon did not have a binding restriction, and the price of 500 skill points was not expensive. If it was replaced by a better weapon in the future, it could be auctioned off for several tens of thousands of game coins. Based on that alone, it was not a bad purchase. After adding this item, Fong Bujue's inventory was filled to the brim. To upgrade his current 10-slot beginner's inventory to a 15-slot standard inventory, he needed 1 million game coins, and he did not have that much money. Furthermore, the price of Iron Suya had given him quite a shock. After Fong Bujue bought Robots Must Die, he left the thriller box. He went to the market to check the changes to the various rankings. The competition for the Guild Combat Strength ranking and Guild Overall Ability ranking was very intense. Other than the top two, the changes to the rankings were huge. However, the players' individual combat strength and level ranking were stable. It was worth noting that the first player to max out in the closed beta, Fearless Champion, had dropped out of the top 10 of the combat strength ranking, and he was no longer at the top of the level ranking. Some unfamiliar names had silently climbed into the top 20 of the two rankings, and these people were the main force of regulation. Fong Bujue bought 4 magazines of ammo at the market and sold the dagger that he had gotten from the Hunter's Island scenario. He had an empty slot in his inventory. Then he returned to the login lobby to queue up for a scenario. His level was 16, and his status was Title: Plot Explorer EXP 3236160000. Skill points: 2080. Game coins: 214800. Proficiency: General Ability D, Workmanship E, Sleuthing E, Fighting D, enhanced by the mask, Marksmanship D, Medic F, Sorcery F, Summoning NA Inventory 910. Mario's Wrench, Eye of Hostility. M1911, a 1 pistol, Echo Armor, Life Points Recovery Potions M, X4, Flashlight, Folding Stool, SCP, 500, 2020, Robots Must Die. Equipment: Jazz Shoes, Casey Jones's Mask, Death Poker, Spiritual Weapon, Space 310, Puzzle Card, Monkey, Puzzle Card, Sunglasses, Puzzle Card, Spin Skills, Hasty Repair, Devilish Child's Lower Whip Kick Body Enhancement Technique. Decisive victory for the time being. Fong Bujue did not plan to play the solo survival mode on Nightmare Mode again. That kind of depressing and exhausting scenario could only be played once or twice a week. No one would be able to stand it if they played it every day. As for the team survival mode, It was clearly more cost-effective to queue with Xiao Tan and the others. This was because there were experience rewards for teaming up with other guild members. Even though Underworld Frontline would only gain an extra 3% EXP, even if there were 4 of them, and this extra EXP would not appear on the rating screen, it was better than nothing. Therefore, Feng Bujue started to think about the killing game again. The previous 1v1 that had a start but no end left him wanting to continue. As the saying went, fighting with other players was fun, and the competition between players was very interesting. Even though the element of horror in the killing game was greatly reduced, the battle between players could still increase the player's adrenaline, and it was quite a thrilling experience. With that in mind, Feng Bujue prepared to queue for another 1v1. To his surprise, just as his eyes moved to the touch screen, someone sent him a communication request. It's this guy again, Feng Bujue grumbled. The player who sent the communication request was Blade Runner. Feng Bujue accepted and immediately said, "What is it?" "Hello, Brother Feng, are you free right now?" Hearing Blade Runner's voice, he seemed to be in a good mood. "I'm standing in the login lobby of an online game and talking to you. Do you think I'm free or not?" Feng Bujue said. "Ha, that's true. Don't tell me you want to queue with me." Feng Bujue asked in a strange tone. "What's wrong? Aren't we good friends?" Blade Runner replied. "Let me guess. Killing game, right?" "Yes. I'm not going. Feng Bujue repeated 3 times in an impatient tone. "What's wrong?" Blade Runner asked. "I can't beat you." Feng Bujue answered curtly. "Huh?" Blade Runner laughed. "I'm looking for you to play a 2v2. Feng Bujue was startled when he heard that. "No way. You're from a big guild, and you're an expert at that. From what I see, more than 90% of you are professional players. Don't tell me you don't have a fixed teammate." "I didn't have time to go online during the day. Now that it's an unexpected game time, I'm going to take a break." Blade Runner said, "It just so happens that everyone else in the studio is in the script, so I came to find you. Your guild has a lot of normal players, right? You don't have anyone at the right level to team up with you?" Feng Bujue asked. "I've checked. There aren't many non-professional players online at this time. There are only 2 or 3 people who are close to my level and are free." Blade Runner replied. "Before I logged into the game, I was looking through the members' information in the office. I remember these IDs. They're all trash with only 5 combat power." He laughed. "It's definitely better to queue with you than them. You sure are a straightforward person. You don't even try to hide the fact that the people in your guild are trash, and you're willing to share it with an outsider," Feng Bujue said. "Ha! I'm just saying what I want to say. When it comes to strength, it's either good or bad. Even if I give them face, they might not be able to hold it. Only when they grow strong enough will they be able to change other people's view of them." Blade Runner's words did have a point, but Feng Bujue was someone who was willing to be considerate of others. He only smiled and did not comment. Instead, he changed the topic. "Then, if you bring me a teammate whose combat power is slightly higher than 5, your chance of winning the 2v2 will greatly increase." "Brother Feng, excessive humility is a manifestation of arrogance," Flashes of Swords said. "At least the both of us know your true ability. Let me tell you, the sorcery weapon that you obtained last time might be the first in the entire Thriller Paradise. It might even be the only one so far." "Huh, fine. Since you're so kind and you've placed me on such a pedestal, I'll reluctantly join you for a game." Feng Bujue's words were quite shameless. He originally wanted to join the killing game, and now he was trying to suck up to someone powerful. Furthermore, Blade Runner was definitely the kind of person who had a strong sense of pride and gentleness in his heart. Be it equipment, level, or combat skill, he was at the top of the fighter class. Blade Runner heard his agreement and sent out a team invitation. Then he said, "Then I'll join the team." Chapter 135. Blade Runner. Level 17, Feng Bujue, Level 16. Your team is joining a 2v2 killing game. Your team has joined the queue. Currently searching for other players or teams that are ready. Confirmed. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. This was the system notification from Feng Bujue's perspective. It was slightly different from when he was the team leader. This time, he heard the voice in Mandarin. A hoarse male voice said, "Make your opponents tremble. Let them experience true terror." Loading complete. You are currently playing the killing game. This mode provides a scenario introduction, and there is a chance to trigger hidden side missions and special world building. Reward for winning the scenario, 30% EXP. Playing the scenario introduction soon. The game will start immediately after that. The introductory cinematic appeared. On the screen, a long-haired beauty in a white lab coat was walking down a dimly lit corridor. In the year 2000, inside the Crystal Lake lab, there was an immortal murderer, Jason. The government scientific research team wanted to use him as an experiment subject to conduct research on the recovery of necrotic tissue. Following the narration, the female researcher walked into a door. The camera did not follow her into the room, but stopped at the corridor. But Jason is not that easy to imprison. Any carelessness will lead to irreversible consequences. The cinematic skipped over most of the scenes in the original movie. It only used a few screams and the sudden darkness to skip over the process of Jason losing control and being frozen by the female researcher. In the year 2455, humanity entered the era of interstellar colonization. This place has become Old Earth, a place filled with storms, poisonous gas, and polluted oceans. A human research team returned to Old Earth to conduct archaeological research. They discovered Rowan and Jason's bodies and brought them back to the transport ship. The cinematic ended there. Fong Bujue could move now, and the system announcement rang in his ears. Main quest triggered. Kill all the members of the enemy team. So it's this bad movie. Blade Runner was standing beside Fong Bujue. They were currently in the corridor shown in the introductory cinematic. For some reason, the lights in the corridor were still on. This meant that this place still had electricity. Something's not right, Fong Bujue said. Why are we in a laboratory instead of a spaceship? Blade Runner replied, so what? The 10th Black Friday basically takes place on a spaceship. In this place we are in cough cough. Fong Bujue suddenly coughed twice. It's not suitable for human survival. After taking a few breaths of the air, flashes of sword also felt slightly uncomfortable. He opened the game menu to check, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. However, his life points had dropped by 1%. It looked like the environment had some kind of indiscriminate effect. They discovered Rowan and Jason's bodies and brought them back to the transport ship. Fong Bujue joked. Then after they all left, we are acting out the plot of the movie in this abandoned underground laboratory that has been abandoned for hundreds of years. In other words, this script only borrows the setting of the movie, and it has nothing to do with Jason or the characters in the movie. Blade Runner added, isn't that perfect? It doesn't have too much to do with the plot. We only need to determine the winner in this enclosed environment. There are 3 things that I hope you know. Fong Bujue raised his right hand and extended his index finger. First, according to the setting of the movie, forget the outside of the laboratory. Even in the environment we are in now, people can die. The reason you and I are not dead is probably because we are players, or it is the system's intentional arrangement. He extended his second finger. Second, I noticed this when I first watched this bad movie. Ignoring the **T script and the lack of director, the setting of this movie is quite sci-fi. For example, the repair equipment on the spaceship, the cyborgs, and so on. In short, this is a world with a very high level of technology. If we can find a way to contact the human civilization in this world, send out a distress signal, and escape from this laboratory, we can reap immeasurable benefits. It is far more profitable than killing the opponent to clear the game. The 2 members of the opposing team will die in this laboratory sooner or later. Even if they can survive for a while with the life point supplement, it is only a matter of time. And we can use this precious time to obtain items, equipment, skills, and so on. We can even use the technology of this world to strengthen our own attributes. Fong Bujue extended his 3rd finger. Third, he coughed twice. Third, and this is the most important point, you'd better pay attention to it. I seriously suspect that Jason is not the only monster in this laboratory. As he said that, he pulled out the steel knife. In a laboratory of this size, it is normal to have more than 10 monsters of the same level as Jason. If I were the scriptwriter to expand the plot, I would definitely start with this. He smiled bitterly. Even though 455 years have passed, if the system wants to add some fun to this 2v2, it would be the perfect choice to release some living monsters to mess things up. After Blade Runner heard that, he gasped internally. I think you're the real monster. He asked with reverence, Brother Phone, you've thought of so many things in the time it took to watch a cinematic. That's all I can think of for now. If there's anything I need to add, I'll let you know, Phone Bujue replied. As expected of a plot explorer. Impressive, impressive. Flashes of Sword's praise came from the bottom of his heart. By the way, let's take a look at their situation first, Phone Bujue said. They opened the game menu. Based on their IGNs, they knew that they were from the same team. One was called Doomsday Assault, level 19, and the other was called Final Assault, also level 19. Other than their IGNs and levels, the only information that they could see was surviving. Assault, huh? Blade Runner frowned. Phone Bujue caught something from his teammate's expression. You know them? Not really, but I've heard of similar IGNs. Blade Runner said. They should be from Zombie Blade. The people from Zombie Blade usually have Assault and King behind their IGNs. Oh? If I remember correctly, that studio is currently ranked 5th on the combat ranking, Phone Bujue said. Higher than Jianghu. Humph. That's what annoys me the most. Blade Runner's tone was laced with helplessness. Actually, these people are not that strong, but they have a way to get to the top. Oh, you mean? With Phone Bujue's cleverness, he naturally understood what the man was trying to say. So he went with the flow. It's not appropriate for me to say that. You can choose to believe it or not. Blade Runner said. Most of the studios in the industry have a consensus that the people from Zombie Blade are cheating. Cheating? You mean all the players from the studio are? They have many tricks up their sleeves. Anything that you can think of, they will do. Blade Runner said. For example, they have developed some illegal external support devices, and in terms of software, they have some kind of cheat code. These things are not known to the outside world, and they are only rumors among normal players. But for us professional players, after a few exchanges with them, we will more or less notice something. Won't the game company do anything about it? Phone Bujue asked. It's hard to do that, so it's not worth it. Blade Runner said. The game company only wants to make money from a game. From many gray areas, as long as it doesn't affect their profit and cause a ruckus, they won't care. He shook his head and sighed. Managing these things requires a lot of resources, manpower, time, technology. From how I see it, unless you show the game company the evidence, they won't care. He suddenly remembered something and said, Oh, there's one more thing. Like I said, the people from Zombie Blade have many tricks up their sleeves, and they might not only be cheating in the game. Sometimes, they will hire people to do some dirty things like posting fake news on the forum to discredit the players from other guilds or posting some negative reviews on the official websites of other studios that compete with them. In short, they're trying to ruin other people's business. The one that left the deepest impression on me was in a game in the past. The game company held an open election for all the players to choose the strongest guild. In the end, Zombie Blade spent money to collect votes, and they managed to take down Regulation and Brahmin. But no matter the result, the game company is still making money. So do you think they won't care? I see. Looks like your resentment runs deep, Phone Bujue said. Blade Runner waved his hand and said with a bitter smile, You don't understand. Only those in our line of work will understand that feeling. Many times, even if you think you're stronger, you will still lose in the end. Losing like that is very embarrassing and chilling, but that is the reality. He paused and raised his eyes to look at Phone Bujue. I'm sorry, but you might think I'm being sarcastic when I say that. No, I believe you, Phone Bujue said. I also believe that Jiang who will not work with them. Of course, when Blade Runner said that, he used his prideful tone. And my philosophy is, Phone Bujue said, either we work with them or we stand up for them. He paused. So, we have to be serious and take these two down to show them what real power is. Chapter 136. Human beings, human civilization, and the land on which human beings lived went round and round, rising and falling. No matter how outstanding the people were, how great their achievements were, how prosperous the world was, they would all be forgotten by time. There were no monuments that could stand forever, because they would all be pushed down eventually. There were no stories that could be eulogized forever, because people would continue to write new great chapters. Old Earth, or First Earth, was such a place that was gradually being forgotten by people. One day in the 22nd century, on a peaceful night, astronomers were surprised to find a new bright spot in the sky through the clear lenses of the United States Mount Chao Air and the Arecibo telescopes in Puerto Rico. It was clearly visible in the area near Pluto. Observatories in Russia and Sweden quickly confirmed this discovery and speculated that this small meteor of unknown mass and origin was hurtling in the direction of the solar system. Some newspapers and periodicals reported on this new star in a small section, while the news agencies only mentioned it briefly. It seemed that for most people, news about astronomy was far less attractive than some gossip and entertainment stories. A few days later, astronomers observed the star field with a mixture of nervousness and curiosity, speculating about what was going to happen there. It turned out that the size and brightness of the meteor was increasing at an astonishing rate. Now, it could be clearly captured with ordinary photographic plates. The closer it was to Pluto, the more uneasy astronomers became. Even in the 22nd century, a celestial collision so close to human beings was still unimaginable. However, at that time, the absolute distance between the two celestial bodies was still very far. When the unimaginable quickly became possible, the media from all over the world began to pay attention to the incident that was unfolding in the sky. Some students even created related celestial movement charts. All the evidence showed that people could only watch helplessly as the meteor rushed towards Pluto. Not long after, the entire world was reporting on this incident. Because the expected collision did not happen, it turned out that when the meteor passed by Pluto, it dragged the entire dwarf planet into its blazing mass. The two celestial bodies merged into a huge, dazzling white sphere that people on Earth could see with the naked eye. Thus, in addition to the sun and the moon, there was a new celestial body. As the Earth rotated, it regularly appeared in people's sight. Every night, people would watch the rise and fall of the sphere, and people gradually realized that every time the sphere rose, it would become even bigger. People began to be suspicious and fearful. They raised questions such as, why did the meteor come here when the universe is so big? It was foolish to ask such a question. It was like asking why one was born out of billions of one's own kind. Scientists explained some of the astrophysics-related knowledge to the public on a news program and announced some of the research results. The overwhelming reports were all telling the same thing. This uninvited guest who had invaded the solar system must be moving in the direction of the sun. Only the gravitational force between the planets could cause the celestial body to deviate from its destructive orbit. But in any case, the end of Earth had arrived. However, what happened next was completely unexpected. For example, Earth was sentenced to death, but the death sentence was delayed. After this fireball swallowed Pluto, its movement speed became very slow. It stopped at a relatively safe distance, like the twin brother of the sun, burning the world. The cold winter disappeared, and the coldest season in the world was like early summer. When the first dawn ended, the second dawn lit up the sky. It was so dazzling, so hot, and the hellish heat wave burned the world like a hurricane. No one knew how long these days would last, but the melting speed of the polar ice caps reminded people that Earth was no longer a place to stay. Optimists, skeptics, desperate people, and crazy people. People had different reactions, and Earth fell into unprecedented chaos. The end of the world finally appeared in front of people in a tangible form. It was no longer an environmental problem alien invasion, or deadly virus that existed in movies or hypotheses that people often talked about. Instead, it appeared in the sky. Every day, it was telling the world that the end was in sight. Who would have thought that the reprieve this time would unite the human race? In the next 10 years, the development of human technology even exceeded the previous 200 years. All mankind finally abandoned the differences of skin color, race, nationality, religion, and so on. For the common goal of the continuation of a race, everyone did their best and unreservedly shared the best science and technology, scientists, resources, and everything. Finally, 20 years later, mankind took the first step of interstellar colonization. The first Ark-class starship flew out of the atmosphere, carrying a population of 1 million. Then, the second, the third, later, the slim chance of escaping from Earth finally made people reveal their true nature. A war broke out on Earth, and it ended with the death of most humans and the destruction of 93% of the man-made facilities on Earth. 27 years later, the end of the world ended like a joke. Of course, no one laughed. The meteor turned 90 degrees, accelerated again, and left the solar system. No one knew why. Maybe it was not a meteor at all, but an alien spaceship. Maybe it was a special life form, or maybe it was a test from an unknown god. In short, when people had the ability to escape from Earth, the threat of Earth destruction no longer existed. The most ironic thing was that this planet had been destroyed by mankind's own nuclear war and was no longer suitable for survival. Fortunately, mankind had mastered the key warp technology, and long-distance interstellar travel was no longer a fantasy. Therefore, the survivors on the Ark found a new home in the Milky Way. It was an uninhabited planet that was very similar to the old Earth, a virgin land that had yet to be stepped on by intelligent life, New Earth, or Second Earth. In the year 2386, a new technology was successfully developed. It was called Ant. It was an extremely small nano-level robot that could be used to repair the cell tissues of living creatures. At first, Ant was used to reconstruct the body of the amputated or to treat patients with spinal injuries. Even patients who had been paralyzed for a long time with severe muscle atrophy could be restored to the state of a normal person. Later, when Ant revived a climber who had frozen to death on a snowy mountain for several years, this technology attracted attention, and people turned their attention back to the first Earth. Starting from the year 2401, a small number of human ancestors that were found on the old Earth were revived. The truth of history, the lost civilization, and many questions were answered. This became a wave that flourished for more than half a century, and it still didn't stop. One day in the year 2455, a Level 4 twin-body transport ship called Grendel arrived on the old Earth. The research team on the ship found 2 frozen living creatures in the Crystal Lake lab and brought them back to the spaceship. One of them was the female researcher, Rowan, and the other was Jason Voorhees, an immortal killer. They did not know that the Grendel spaceship was not the only one that visited the Crystal Lake lab that day. There was also another team that had an ulterior motive and had followed the research team to this place. After the research team left, the group of people entered the lab. Who would have thought we'd run into a strong enemy, Final Assault said. Blade Runner, one of the Laughing Blade, is indeed a troublesome opponent. Doomsday Assault added. The two from Zombie Blade both had a buzz cut. Their faces were pale, and their expressions were numb. Their voices were not loud, and their tone was even. They were wearing green and black outfits. The style was similar to the uniforms from Star Trek, but the color was different. On the left chest of the uniform was the badge of Zombie Blade. The design was a finely carved scimitar, and the words were naturally Zombie Blade in black. Is that Feng Bujue also an expert from Jianghu? How come I've not heard of him before? Doomsday Assault asked. Don't you think it's weird to run into such a combination? It is indeed weird. Based on the rules of this game, the difference in power between the two teams shouldn't be that big, Final Assault replied. He paused before continuing. I have to admit, even though Blade Runner is 2 levels lower than us, he is not weaker than the two of us. But that Feng Bujue is only level 16. In other words, the system believes that the combined power of these two is about the same as two level 19 players like us. Doomsday Assault asked, Humph, something must have gone wrong. Could it be that this Fong Bujue is an expert at the same level as Blade Runner? Final Assault said, if that is the case, the only explanation is he is actually a celebrity professional player who has used a new IGN in Thriller Paradise. You have a point, Doomsday Assault said. Doomsday Assault continued. It must be an expert who joined Jiang Hu from another studio and changed his in-game ID to partner up with Flashes of Sword. That would explain why we would run into two players who are lower level than us in a 2v2. Isn't that a good thing? Final Assault said. It is rare for us to run into opponents who are lower level than us in a killing game, so our chance of winning should be higher. Doomsday Assault nodded. But even if we know we will win, we cannot be too careless. Look, our life points are slowly dropping. This means that there's a time limit to this scenario. If the opponent uses a stalling tactic to avoid a direct confrontation with us, then this battle will become a war of attrition between life points, recovery potions, and healing points. The life points in this game do not have a numerical value, but are expressed in percentage. If this turns into a game of hide and seek, we will have no advantage at all. I think so too. We'd better finish this as soon as possible, Final Assault replied. We have the advantage in level, and we have the aid of that potion. If we still lose, it will be too embarrassing. On the other side, Fong Bujue led the way with the steel sword, and Blade Runner followed behind him. They moved quickly and quietly down the corridor. Fong Bujue turned Casey Jones's mask into a display mode. Even though it was not a gas mask, wearing it would reduce the discomfort of breathing in harmful air. A war of attrition is a method that is more advantageous to us, Fong Bujue said as they walked. Since the mask was on, his voice was muffled. What kind of attrition method? Flashes of Sword asked. Are you referring to using ranged weapons or traps to deal with them? No. As long as we don't run into the enemy, it will be a form of attrition, Fong Bujue replied. Blade Runner thought about it and understood what he meant. You mean we should make use of the indiscriminate reduction effect here? Yes, Fong Bujue replied. Their level is higher than ours, so, theoretically, they should have more life points. He coughed again. But the loss of life points caused by the environment is based on percentage. You and I have checked that earlier. They had just discussed the situation of their life points a few minutes ago. They were one level apart, and their current life points were both at 95%. Even the timing of the drop was almost the same, down to the second. This meant that the loss of life points had nothing to do with their level. As long as they breathed in the air, their life points would drop by percentage after a fixed period of time. Blade Runner laughed. Brother Fong, do you mind if I ask, how many life points recovery potions do you have? I have 4 medium bottles, Fong Bujue replied. Let's not talk about how many they have, Blade Runner said. Even I have more than you. He shook his head. Furthermore, what if one of them is a medic or a medic? Then wouldn't this war of attrition be exactly what they want? I said to start the war of attrition, but I didn't say it would end with attrition. Fong Bujue said, what I mean is for this game, it is best not to drag it into a fast-paced pace. You think we will lose if we fight them head-on? Flashes of Sword asked. Actually, the tone of his question made it clear that he did not think that was the case. Not necessarily, Fong Bujue said. But since you have me as your teammate, you should know that with our team, the overall advantage of our strength is far greater than the advantage of fighting them in close quarters. He turned his head slightly to look over his shoulder and said to Blade Runner, the use of strategy is also part of one's strength. He paused for a moment and looked ahead again. If you just want to go head-to-head with your opponent, then you might as well find a pure martial arts player and team up with me. Blade Runner said, okay, then roar. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by a strange growl. Fong Bujue stopped moving at the right time. The two of them had a tacit understanding of each other. They kept their mouths shut and very consciously split up to face 2 different directions to be on alert. They listened with bated breath, waiting for the growl to come again to determine its location. Chapter 137. The second roar came several seconds later. This time, Fong Bujue and Blade Runner were fully focused, so naturally, they heard the monster's location clearly. The two of them exchanged glances and headed in that direction together. Their pace was not fast, but it was very quiet. Fong Bujue switched the mask back to its invisible state and then took out the Eye of Hostility from his inventory and put it on. In the previous scenarios, he had either been acting alone or had run into situations like Death Quiz, so he had not used this equipment for a long time. This was the perfect time to put it to good use. Even though there was light in the corridor, it was not perfect. Every once in a while, there would be an area that was brighter with white light, and then there would be a dim corridor about 15 meters long, and then there would be another bright area, and so on. Therefore, Fong Bujue took out the flashlight to scout ahead. He was mainly worried that he might miss some game clues in the dim corridor. The two tiptoed down the corridor and came to a T-junction. During this time, the monster's low roar came again, and it was louder than the previous two times. They stopped at the junction and looked to the left. After turning into the corridor, they would reach the end about 20 meters away. There was a thick metal door at the end, and there was a rudder-like valve on the door. The monster's roar came from behind the door. Fong Bujue titled his head and whispered, "Since the door is closed, it means that this is an optional scenario. Based on that, this monster is not weak, and the system has given us the choice to kill or not kill it. If we don't kill it, we'll just leave from the other side of the corridor. If we take the risk and kill it, we should be able to get a corresponding reward." Blade Runner also lowered his voice to ask, "What if this is a boss-level monster that is stronger than Jason?" Impossible. Jason is the strongest monster in this scenario. There is no doubt about that. Even though Fong Bujue had not spent much time with flashes of sword, he had a feeling that the man was a straightforward and open person. There was no need to be overly cautious when communicating with him, so he did not hide anything from him. The skill of my title allows me to check the data of the scenario's final boss directly. When I entered the scenario, I took a glance, and the boss of this scenario is Jason. Oh, there's such a skill? When Flashes of Sword heard that, his interest was piqued. He asked, then who was the boss that you encountered in the Thunderbolt scenario that we were in?" "No," Fong Bujue said. "Why? I just heard the quest hint, and you charged at me with your sword. Was I supposed to just stand there and look at the menu? Is that my fault?" "Of course." "Haha. Then how is Jason's data? Is he strong?" Blade Runner asked. "How should I put this? In terms of fighting ability, perhaps he is not as strong as alien monsters like the Predator, but in terms of survivability, he is harder to kill than a ghost," Fong Bujue replied. The monster's data that Fong Bujue had seen earlier was as follows. Name, Jason Fawcett Race. Level, 20 height, 190 centimeters weight, 113 kilograms fighting style. Close combat, familiar with machetes, knows how to use other weapons or bare hands weakness. Obedient to his mother. Own skill. Resurrection. Even if Jason is completely destroyed physically, he can appear again as long as he finds a ridiculous reason. Danger level. Medium. Fong Bujue personally believed that the resurrection skill was meant to mock the producers who had filmed this series for so many episodes. Roar. The monster inside the door roared again. Since they were closer this time, Fong Bujue and Blade Runner heard other noises. It sounded like the grinding of metal. It was light, heavy, and dense. Let's put those irrelevant things aside for now. After all, Jason is already on the spaceship. Normally, we won't run into him until we leave the scenario, Fong Bujue said. Let's talk about this monster first. Should we kill it or not? Huh? Blade Runner was startled. Aren't you responsible for coming up with the plan? Why are you asking me? Oh, is that so? Fong Bujue mumbled. You'll kill whatever I tell you to, right? That makes things easier. He put the flashlight and steel knife back into his backpack and walked forward to grab the valve on the metal door. I'll open the door now. You rush in and slash. I'll cover you from behind. Hey, Blade Runner then realized. Why did Fong Bujue ask for his opinion? It was too late to say anything now. Fong Bujue had already turned the valve. With a strong push, the metal door swung open. The monster inside the room seemed to have noticed the situation at the door. Before Blade Runner rushed in, it moved first. After pushing the door open, Fong Bujue retreated a few steps back and pulled out the steel knife again. Flashes of Sword was about to bend his body to rush into the door when he heard the strange sound of grinding metal coming from the darkness again. Almost instinctively, Blade Runner stopped moving. He held his sword before his chest and charged at the black shadow that was rushing out from the door. Following a strange creaking sound, the monster's large body poked out from the door. When a monster's full appearance was revealed before Flashes of Sword, the latter immediately abandoned the thought of using his sword to block the attack and retreated as fast as he could. The monster came to the light of the corridor. Its appearance was so strange that it was hard to describe. Imagine spreading out a newspaper and placing a pile of metal objects of various shapes on top of it. For example, clothes hangers, screws, scissors, L-shaped water pipes, a large ball of iron wire, and so on. Then, wrap these things with a newspaper and apply pressure from the outside to squeeze out the air from the inside. There was no doubt that the protruding edges of the metal objects would pierce through the outer layer of the newspaper and poke out. In the end, the result would be an irregularly shaped metal object wrapped in a layer of paper full of holes. The monster that came out from the door was something similar to this. However, its body was not made of newspaper, but a layer of eroded skin. This skin was thicker than a bedding, and there were many holes on it. Some moving and messy metal objects poked out from the holes. There were bicycle poles, rolls of barbed wire, car parts, the iron fence of the anti-theft door, and so on. They were all rusty and broken trash. The size of the monster was hard to tell. It was about the size of a car. When it was in the room, it could turn into the shape of a bun. In order to squeeze out of the metal door, it could also turn itself into the shape of a taco. It used the metal objects that poked out of its skin to move on the ground. It looked like a squirming snail, but in fact, it had countless legs. The sound of friction that Fong Bujue and the rest heard just now was the sound of it moving. The low roar came from inside its body. However, even Fong Bujue found it hard to imagine what the core of the monster was wrapped in a layer of skin more than 10 centimeters thick and a pile of living metal. Is this thing a machine or a living creature? Flashes of Sword retreated as he stared at the unknown monster that was slowly moving toward him. It was not that he was spooked by its strange appearance, but he did not know where to start his attack, even if he wanted to. Fong Bujue stood a few meters behind Blade Runner. In any case, it doesn't look like a spirit. As he said that, he took out another weapon from his backpack. He held a steel knife in one hand and a wrench in the other. He looked forward. So, I have double insurance. Blade Runner turned his head slightly and glanced at Fong Bujue from the corner of his eyes. How are we going to attack? Cut it open, Fong Bujue said in a very calm tone. That's easy for you to say. It has so many metal tentacles that are poking out, and it's so big. It's not good to get close to it. Before Blade Runner could finish his sentence, Fong Bujue took a big step forward and swung the two weapons at the monster. The monster had indeed launched a counterattack, but surprisingly, it was very weak. After all, the rusty metal objects were not sharp weapons, and they did not move that fast. Even the strength was not that strong. In any case, the monster's attack was like a normal person swinging a bicycle at you. In real life, it could injure you, but in the game, the physical fitness of the players was different. Furthermore, with Fong Bujue's weapon, it would not be a big deal. After a series of swings, Fong Bujue managed to cut open the skin on the front of the monster. A pile of rusty metal that gave off a damp and moldy smell was exposed before his eyes. Without hesitation, he raised the cleaver and slashed. Using Android's must-eye to cut through the pile of scrap metal was like using a plastic knife to cut a cake. The monster's metal body was cut open with the force of the cut. When Flashes of Sword saw how weak the monster was, he instantly felt embarrassed by his cowardice. Without a second thought, he rushed forward and used Shining Shadow Slash. With the buff from his attack speed, he tore through the monster's body like a human-shaped shredder. The thick layer of the monster's skin oozed out a liquid similar to engine oil. After it was chopped up, it splashed everywhere. In an instant, the ground was covered in minced meat, black oil, and rotten metal pieces. The strange thing was that the monster that had been growling earlier was very quiet under the attacks of Fong Bujue and Blade Runner. Even though it kept moving the metal parts in its body to defend and counterattack, it did not make any more growls. In the next 3 minutes, the two of them were like mice gnawing on cheese, launching a continuous barrage of attacks on the monster. On the monster's side, even though its metal limbs did not pose much of a threat, it did not stop. The process of killing this monster was more tiring than expected. If it was a werewolf that came out of the door, then it would be easier. Perhaps its attack power would be at least 5 times stronger than this monster, but it would not be so troublesome to kill. Finally, after the two had depleted about 300 stamina points, they finally saw what the monster's core was. Instantly, the monster's curiosity level rose to a whole new level. Chapter 138. I have seen many disgusting things in my life, but this, Blade Runner said, I don't even want to touch it with my sword. Hiss, is this Momochi? Fong Bujua mumbled. What are the patterns on its body? The thing that appeared before them was an insect larva about the size of a baby. It looked like the kind of worm that ate the insides of fruits and vegetables. Its body was long and short, and it was cylindrical in shape. Its body was divided into segments. This worm's body was not the usual milky white or light yellow. Its body was covered with various currency patterns, all kinds of anti-counterfeiting threads, patterns, specially designed numbers, and even some patterns of human faces were printed on its body in fragments. At the juncture between the two segments of the insect's body, there were countless threads that were soaked in black mucus. It seemed that these threads were the ones that allowed the giant insect egg at the core to establish some kind of connection with a rusty metal object. Before we saw this thing, it was screaming and screaming inside, but once it was cut open, it went silent. Fong Bujua said, but it won't be easy to dig it out, Flashes of Sword added. I say, you should give it the final blow, Fong Bujua said as he used his weapon to block a piece of metal that was coming at him. Didn't I say, I don't want to touch it with my sword? Blade Runner replied as he cut down a pipe that was coming at him from the side. Judging from the size of this worm, if I stab it, it will definitely burst out juice like a pissing beef ball, Fong Bujua said. I just bought this knife. Can't you just take it out after you're done with it? Flashes of Sword asked. Then use your sword to cut it. Fong Bujua said. Isn't your sword as fast as the wind? Hurry up and kill it. I will stand further away to support you mentally. Blade Runner sighed. Fine. I didn't want to waste it here, but if that's the case... He took out a grenade from his backpack. Hey, if you have this, why didn't you take it out earlier? If you had said so earlier, we would have opened the door and thrown it in. Like I said, I don't want to waste them here. Even I only have 2 of those grenades, Flashes of Sword replied. Fong Bujua ignored him. After he blocked a piece of metal, he turned around and retreated to the corner of the corridor. Seeing that Chun-Gu was ready, Flashes of Sword pulled on the end of the grenade and tossed it at the fat bug at the center of the circle. As expected, the threads that extended from the bug's body stuck to the grenade. Under normal circumstances, Blade Runner's speed was obviously faster than Fong Bujua's, and his movement skill was better. With a light tap of his feet, he swiftly escaped from the giant monster's entanglement. He was almost at the same distance as Fong Bujua. Several seconds later, there was an explosion behind them. The giant worm at the core was blown to pieces. The rotten metal scattered on the ground, and the outermost layer of cells that looked like skin started to dissolve into pus. Did you hear that? Final Assault asked. Of course, Doomsday Assault replied. It sounded like an explosion, but it didn't sound like a powerful explosive. The distance was quite far, and it's hard to tell. Was it Blade Runner's group? Final Assault asked as he moved his gaze to the floor before him. Or was it done by this group of people? There was a human body lying on the ground. It was a Caucasian male. He was wearing an orange protective suit that looked like a spacesuit. It was connected from the neck to the soles of his feet. However, The suit looked simpler and more comfortable than the spacesuits of the 21st century. It did not look heavy. He was wearing a light helmet, and the front of the helmet was a transparent visor. It looked like glass, but it was not. It should be made from a more advanced material. The helmet was connected to his collar, so Chun-Go believed that the whole suit was sealed. However, there was no equipment like an oxygen bag, so there was an 80% chance that the suit had some kind of futuristic technology that could provide breathing. At that moment, there was a large hole in the visor of the body, and his face was a mess of flesh and blood. Obviously, the two from Zombie Blade had given him a good beating. It was unclear whether the cause of his death was the wound on his face or the air that he breathed in after the visor was broken. This scenario is more complicated than it looks. Other than the players, there are also the monsters in this group of unknown people, Doomsday Assault said. Us, Blade Runner's group, the monsters, and these people make up 4 factions. The more living things there are, the easier it is for them to confuse us, and we won't know where to find the 2 that we need to kill. Doomsday Assault looked at the menu. Currently, we know that the 2 of them are still alive. Their life points, he paused, should be the same as ours. Not counting the battle damage, they should have lost 32% of their life points. After all, we each have 15 high-capacity life points recovery potions. Even if repeated consumption will cause the effect to decrease, they should be able to last for a long time, so there's no need to worry. Doomsday Assault added, Humph, you have a point. Since we can't tell whether the explosion was caused by them or not, we should stick to our original plan and explore this part of the lab first. Brother Foam, come and take a look at this. Blade Runner held the flashlight and squatted before his safe. Foam Bujua was inspecting the cage that held the monster, but he did not find anything. When he heard the question, he walked over and used his flashlight to shine at it. Obviously, this is a treasure chest that was spawned by the system. I know that, Blade Runner said. This chest looks brand new. It doesn't look like it's been sitting there for 455 years. Furthermore, he pointed at the lock. Look at the puzzle that the system gave. What is the meaning of this puzzle? Is it a Jingzi? Foam Bujua leaned close to the chest, and the system menu appeared before his eyes. The window showed 9 squares that were joined together. They looked like one side of a Rubik's Cube, but they had no color. The prompt said, please fill in the appropriate number. Isn't it just a 9-palace puzzle? Foam Bujua blurted out. We're 9, and we're 1, 3 on the left and 7 on the right, 2 and 4 for the shoulders, 6 and 8 for the feet. You didn't play this when you were young? Of course, I know, Blade Runner said. The system should say, fill in the appropriate number. Only then would people understand. It's open. As Foam Bujua spoke, he unlocked it from the menu. The safe opened with a click. However, the treasure chest was empty. There were no skill cards, no items, and nothing. It was empty. At that moment, Foam Bujua suddenly suspected that his luck was so bad that he opened an empty chest. Fortunately, the system's voice dispelled this thought. Side quest has been triggered. Catch it and kill it. The content of this quest was short, strange, and baffling. However, Foam Bujua immediately realized something. He pounced toward the empty, safe 1 meter away. His hands reached inside and scratched wildly. Then, like a madman, he rushed to the metal door of the room and quickly closed the door. What's going on? Blade Runner asked. There's something in the safe, Foam Bujua replied. Earlier, flashes of sword had seen Foam Bujua open the safe. It was clear that it was empty. There was no light in the room, and the flashlights in their hands were the only source of light. In that kind of situation, Foam Bujua suddenly said something like that, and it caused goosebumps to crawl all over Flash's of sword body. It's already out, Foam Bujua said again. Blade Runner stood up and looked at Foam Bujua cautiously. He suspected that his teammate had been mentally corrupted or was hallucinating. He asked tentatively, Brother Foam, what did you see? I didn't see anything, Foam Bujua replied. That thing is invisible. When Blade Runner heard that, he immediately dismissed his earlier thought. He suddenly realized what the mission was referring to. Where is it? Blade Runner used a flashlight to look around. You're asking me? Feng Bujue asked. Don't the goggles you're wearing have any special visual enhancement? Blade Runner didn't know the equipment attribute of the Eye of Hostility. He only guessed the effect when he saw Feng Bujue put it on when he encountered a monster. This thing depends on the target of the monster's aggro. Feng Bujue replied. But first, I have to see the monster. If I can't see the monster, it won't work. As he said that, he took off the Eye of Hostility and put it back into his inventory. By the way, I can't detect the aggro target of the Bun Bun bug outside the door. It seems to only attack creatures that come close to it indiscriminately. Blade Runner moved carefully and inspected his surroundings. There's no sound at all. Are you sure that thing didn't escape before you closed the door? If it rushed to the door faster than me, it would have made some noise. If it wanted to be quiet, it couldn't have been faster than me, Feng Bujue replied. How do you know? What if it's fast and quiet? Blade Runner asked. Of course, then there's no need to catch it. It's a fast and quiet invisible creature. It can dance in circles around us now, Feng Bujue said. Would the system let you catch something that is impossible to catch? Then what do we do now? Blade Runner asked. It's inside this room. Can it understand our conversation? His expression became nervous. If it attacks us, Feng Bujue cut him off. An invisible creature locked in a safe. Its height and weight is at most the level of a high school student. If it dares to come into contact with us, suddenly, a muffled sound came from behind Feng Bujue. The next second, he felt something jump onto his shoulder. Then two bony claws gripped his throat. There was no doubt that the monster was trying to strangle him to death. Feng Bujue was a man who had lost his fear. This sudden attack not only did not stun him, it made every nerve in his body tense. Before his brain had time to come up with a countermeasure, his body had already instinctively moved. Feng Bujue raised his arms to grab the invisible monster on his shoulder. His 10 fingers dug deep into the monster's bare shoulders. The monster was in pain and had no choice but to release its claws on Feng Bujue's throat. Breathing freely allowed Feng Bujue's stamina to rise. An extremely tense but strange battle began. From Blade Runner's perspective, Feng Bujue was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly performed a performance art. He performed a zombie dance. The flashlight in his hand flew out. Then, he fell to the ground in a very comical position and wriggled around. The situation was very complicated. Feng Bujue did not have the energy to speak. He had to be on guard against a pair of strong and agile claws attacking his throat. Almost every second, he was in a state of wrestling with the opponent. The invisible monster's body was slippery, but it was not the kind of wet, disgusting feeling. It was only because it was naked. Its body size was just as Feng Bujue predicted. It was like a miniature version of a human. Its strength was very abnormal. It was almost on par with Feng Bujue. Brother Feng, you are. Blade Runner walked over with a flashlight and shone it on Feng Bujue, who was rolling on the ground. I caught. Feng Bujue's face was red. He squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. It caught. From Blade Runner's perspective, this 1 minute was inexplicable. To Feng Bujue, it was a silent and exhausting struggle. Fortunately, he had the upper hand in the end. Feng Bujue used his knee to press against the monster's chest and used his hand to choke its throat. The advantage of his arm length and body size allowed him to temporarily suppress the monster. He could clearly feel that in the darkness, there was something else that was panting just like him. Its heart was also beating violently. This meant that the monster was just as exhausted as he was. Blade Runner tried to touch the monster with his hand and touched it. It is really invisible. Don't be long-winded. Hurry up and do it. Feng Bujue said. He knew very well that after the monster paused for a few seconds, it began to struggle violently again. Its claws grabbed Feng Bujue's arm. If it was not for the choking pressure on its throat and chest weakening its strength, Feng Bujue would not have been able to hold it down. Don't reach out. This monster has sharp teeth. Use your sword to chop off its head. Feng Bujue reminded again. Where's its head? My right hand is choking its neck. Above is its head. Understood, Blade Runner replied. He aimed at the position and raised his sword. With a bang, something was split open. Fong Bujue only felt the two claws grabbing his arm suddenly tighten and then loosen. He understood that the monster was finished. Chapter 139. Side quest completed. The system notification sounded. Fong Bujue finally let out a sigh of relief and sat on the ground. Strange, this thing is still invisible after death. Blade Runner squatted down and tried to touch the monster's body. This means, Fong Bujue said. He took out a steel knife and cut off a piece of skin from the monster's body. He placed it on his palm and said, its invisibility mechanism is not active. It is a passive feature. He flung the piece of skin away. Its invisibility is not like a chameleon, which creates an optical camouflage effect on its body surface to blend into the environment. It is completely transparent. He picked up his flashlight with one hand and used the knife with the other to cut the body on the floor a few times. The sound of flesh and blood gushing out came from the empty space. It's not just the skin and muscle, but also its internal organs, bones, and body fluids. They're all transparent. Brother Fong, Blade Runner said, I understand now. Can you stop playing with the monster's body? I'm not playing. I just want to see if its skin or flesh can be used as a camouflage prop. Fong Bujue pursed his lips. But it didn't work. If it works, are you really going to peel off its skin and wear it as a cloak? I can consider it, Fong Bujue replied. Blade Runner muttered. My grenade just now was really a waste. I think as long as the reward is high enough, even if I ask you to bite that fat worm to death, you would do it. That's right. If killing that worm with my mouth can reward me with 5 million game coins, forget about biting it. I would even eat it. Fine. You don't have to describe it anymore. Blade Runner felt disgusted just by imagining it. Then let's get back to the topic. Fong Bujue stood up. Now that the side quest has been completed, no matter if we win or lose this round of the killing game, at least there will be an additional reward for the side quest. He walked to the door, put away the flashlight and knife, and used both of his hands to pull the heavy metal door open. The light from the corridor lit up a small area outside the door. Next, we'll continue down the other path. Stopping to rest in this scenario is no different from exhausting our energy. I suggest we maintain a constant state of action. He walked out the door. Flashes of sword nodded and followed Fong Bujue out the door. The two of them stepped on the pus and rotten metal left behind by the dead monster for a distance of 5 to 6 meters. After that, they took another 10 steps and passed through the T-shaped corridor and walked to the other side. The lighting in the corridor was still the same. A dim path led to a bright area, extending into the distance. The cold iron walls around them and the horrible air quality created a suffocating feeling. If one had to describe it, every second in this underground lab, one's lungs felt like they were breathing in gaseous rust. This kind of discomfort followed them like a shadow, and it was impossible to shake it off. It had a pattern that drained the player's life points. When Fong Bujue and Blade Runner's life points dropped to 50%, Fong Bujue took out 2 medium life points recovery potions from his inventory. He passed one to his teammate and drank the other. Brother Fong, you only have 4 of these potions, right? Blade Runner did not take the potions but said, don't be so generous at a time like this. Keep them for yourself. I have a larger capacity in my inventory. Fong Bujue did not put the potions down but replied, I suggest you don't just carry large potions with you in the future. A large, life points recovery potion is a waste if consumed at any time. Its recovery effect was 100%. In theory, the lowest recovery rate was 1%, but normally, players would drink it when their life points fell to 10%. That was because it was easy to be killed in one hit at that time, and they would lose the chance to recover their health. In other words, a normal potion that can recover 100% of one's life points will provide 80 to 90% of one's life points, and the rest will be the overflow. But there is a simple solution that can solve this problem. Even though Blade Runner had not finished listening to Fong Bujue's whole theory, He had already accepted the potion from Fong Bujue because he had a strong feeling that he would soon be convinced. If we consider the decreasing effect of the life points recovery potion, Fong Bujue turned around and continued to move forward. As long as we have a number of small or medium potions in our inventory, I personally suggest 5 potions because every 5 potions will take up 1 life points. When we lose life points, we will drink the smaller potions first to replenish our life points. Then, when we need to drink the larger potions, the loss will be negated because the larger potions won't be able to recover one's life points to 100%. He paused before continuing. Using this scenario, ignoring the damage caused by the battle, it is more economical for us to drink the potions now. The cost of recovering life points will be lower, and the recovery rate will not be wasted. Blade Runner walked side by side with him. He was silent for a few seconds after he heard that. He felt like the explanation made sense, but there was something wrong with it. Brother Fong, can I understand it this way? You give me a medium potion now, and in this scenario, whenever there is a need, we will drink the large potions that I have with me until they are empty. Yes, but my inventory is limited, so I will leave the large potions with you for now. After all, when you see that your life points are almost recovered, you should share one with me as well. When Fong Bujue said that, his tone and expression were so righteous. Let me get this straight. Blade Runner said, you will first force-feed me a medium potion that is worth 6,000 game coins, and then I will have to supply both of us with 12,000 large potions. Yes, Fong Bujue replied. Isn't that what you meant earlier? Is there a need to repeat yourself? You sure don't treat yourself as an outsider. Blade Runner said, based on my observation, this level of sharing of team resources will not be beyond your psychological expectation and financial capability. Fong Bujue said, furthermore, if we can find a way to stop the loss of life points in the next hour, based on the ratio of life points to life points, we might not need your large potions anymore. In that case, you'll have earned my potions for nothing. He extended a finger and waved it. Furthermore, you've gained a set of theories on how to maximize the effectiveness of the blood potion. It can save you an unpredictable amount of life points recovery in the future, if you convert all of this into money. He turned around. Why do you have such an expression on your face? Because I feel like you're slowly upgrading from scamming to extortion. I just want to discuss it with you. We are 2 adults. It is normal for us to talk about intellectual property. Big brother, I was wrong. You can take as many of my potions as you want. The 2 chatted as they walked. Suddenly, there was a banging sound that came from the side. The sound came from a corner about 10 meters away. It came from afar and came closer. Based on the frequency, it sounded like footsteps. It sounded like a creature with 2 legs. It is probably a human. The footsteps are heavy, messy, and stumbling. When it runs, it approaches the wall on the side. Fong Bujue said, this person is probably running away. Blade Runner was also listening intently. He added, how come there are no footsteps coming from the thing that is chasing after him? Furthermore, the person is not gasping for air or calling for help. This does not sound right. Fong Bujue cautiously pulled out his steel sword. Soon, the figure that ran out from the corner answered all their questions. The person was wearing an orange protective suit and a helmet. The collar of the suit was connected to the helmet. At that moment, his head was clamped tightly by a creature that looked like an octopus. Only the lower edge of the mask was exposed. The tentacles of the octopus had pierced through the helmet and pierced into his brain. The octopus monster had replaced the man's brain and controlled his movements. The monster did not appear to be very good at using the human body. When he ran, the man's arms hung limply by his side. They swayed with the shaking of his body. This affected his balance, and it was why he kept stumbling when he ran. Blade Runner looked at the man that was running toward them and said, if we remove the thing on his head, do you think he will still be alive? Fong Bujue shook his head. He took a few steps forward, and like a baseball player, he waved the steel sword with both hands and chopped off the man's head. I'm starting to miss the shotgun. Fong Bujue walked toward the head that fell to the ground. In this kind of Western sci-fi scenario, the monsters are as disgusting as they can be. The octopus monster was still alive. It had detached itself from its severed neck. When it pulled its tentacles away from its helmet, it could be clearly seen that the human head inside the helmet was badly mutilated. There were at least 7 or 8 large holes in the skull. A lot of brain matter flowed out from the suckers of the octopus monster's tentacles and dripped to the ground together with the blood. Fong Bujue was thankful that he had bought a knife before entering the scenario. That would have saved him the trouble of using a blunt weapon to kill this kind of creature. Even zombies had skulls, and using the wrench to crush the skull was not a big deal, but to kill this creature that looked so chewy was probably as difficult as rolling dough. The octopus monster did not put up too much of a fight, and it was easily chopped into pieces by the steel sword. The colorful liquid inside its body flowed all over the ground, and then it stopped moving. The way this thing attacks people should be similar to the facehugger in Alien. Fong Bujue shook away the residue on the steel sword and walked to the head. As he studied it, he said, "But there seems to be a difference in the way it parasitizes. The facehugger won't drill so many holes in the human head and reach its tentacles into it." When Fong Bujue was chopping up the octopus monster, Blade Runner had already moved to the dead man's body to search. He found something that looked like a weapon inside the man's pocket. He held it in front of his eyes and was surprised to see that it could really summon the item menu. Name: Anti-Gravity Catapult. Item type: Weapon quality: Excellent. Offense points: Medium element. None special effect. Can make objects that are less than 10 kilograms and smaller than 1 cubic meter levitate and launch them forward. Equip requirement: Marksmanship D, Workmanship E, Level 15 remark. Please do not try to suck your eyeballs out. I can tell you clearly that the result will be very bad. Brother Fong, come and see if you can use this weapon. Blade Runner passed the item to Fong Bujue. The anti-gravity gun looked like an iron, but it was not that thick. There were 2 buttons where the user could hold it, and it was obvious that one was for lift and the other was for eject. Fong Bujue looked at the item's attribute and then very casually aimed it in another direction. He sucked the dead man's head that was several meters away. The helmet that covered the head floated a few inches in front of the gun, and at the same time, the gun emitted a continuous buzzing sound. Fong Bujue raised his arm and aimed it at the direction they came from and pressed the eject button. The head flew out at a speed of around 70 kilometers per hour and disappeared into the corridor like a cannonball. This is advanced technology, Fong Bujue praised. Unfortunately, this guy didn't use it to save his life. Blade Runner looked at the dead man's head with a dull gaze. You're playing with corpses again, I say, O.L. Kwong. Fong Bujue placed his hand on Flashes of Sword's shoulder and was about to say something when the latter cut him off. You can call me Flashes of Sword. Child scum. Sure. Fong Bujue continued. You should know that I'm talking about this sort of treasures, right? Yes, of course, Fong Bujue said. I say, Child Jian, what about this equipment? You can have it if you want. My marksmanship and workmanship mastery are still lacking. Blade Runner guessed that Fong Bujue was going to bring this up. He had given it to Fong Bujue because he did not have enough equipment. Then, I won't stand on ceremony. Fong Bujue pocketed the equipment and looked at the dead body on the ground. This scenario is not as simple as it seems. There are humans in this lab. Flashes of Sword replied. Didn't the plot introduction say that the research team that came to do the archaeology has already left with Jason's body? Could it be, other than them, there are other human teams that have entered this place? That is the only explanation for now. As Fong Bujue replied, he started to peel off the dead body's clothes. Hey, what are you doing? This is a man. Blade Runner raised his voice. Have you gotten addicted to playing with dead bodies? Fong Bujue removed the protective suit from the headless body. Inside the suit, the dead body was still wearing a white shirt and a pair of shorts. Fong Bujue raised one of the dead body's arms and pointed at the tattoo on the outside of the left arm. Look at this. Blade Runner leaned closer to take a look. There was a tattoo of a ship and the word scavenger. He thought about it and raised his head to ask, hey, could this person be a member of a grave-robbing organization from the future? The tattoo is the emblem of a certain organization. That is a reasonable guess. By then, Fong Bujue was already examining the dead body's palm. Of course, perhaps this tattoo is meaningless, and this person thought that it would be cool to draw this tattoo and the title of a homeless person on his arm. Is there such a person? Blade Runner asked. That is hard to say. Feng Bujue placed the dead body's palm very close to his face. The tip of their nose was almost touching. When I was in primary school, I once saw an online game where some kids named their guild Lei Feng or something like that. I can't remember the full name, but they seemed to think that they were cool. Every one of them had a swastika above their head as they wandered around the game. After he finished examining the dead body's palm, he started to examine the back of the hand and the fingernails. So, if you bury a seed of stupidity in the soil of ignorance, use it as fertilizer, and then use the poison of exam-oriented education to irrigate it. In the end, it will most likely bear some self-humiliating scum. F***CKME. Brother Feng, have you studied the language masking system of this game? You can actually say something like that, and with only one word, it doesn't affect the meaning of the sentence. This person rubbed off his fingerprints. Feng Bujue did not continue the conversation with Blade Runner. Instead, he changed the topic. Maybe it was done with glue, or maybe it was done in a more violent way. In any case, he has no fingerprints. He paused for a moment. These hands don't look like they belong to someone who does heavy labor. His body is also not considered muscular. With a device like the anti-gravity catapult, naturally, he doesn't need to use much physical strength to get things done, Blade Runner said. From the wrists of his left and right hands, he doesn't look like someone who uses computers often. Feng Bujue continued. But we can't rule out the possibility that people will completely abandon peripherals like the mouse in the future. I say, great detective, don't tell me you're going to strip this body naked and analyze it from head to toe, going through every detail? Blade Runner asked. Feng Bujue smiled. I don't have that much time. Besides, if I really wanted to do that, I wouldn't have thrown his head away. He replied, I just want to see if his limbs have mutated and... Feng Bujue said as he lifted the body's sweatshirt and looked at the torso. Are there any strange organs growing on his body, or does he have skin that is different from the humans we know? What do you mean? Blade Runner said. The setting of this script is from the 10th Black Friday, right? It's not from the X-Men, right? I just have a hypothesis. Feng Bujue replied. What if this group of people is different from the humans on the spaceship? What if they don't come from the universe? Perhaps on this old Earth, there are still human cities, but the humans who migrated out don't know about it. Maybe there are a few descendants of the survivors hiding somewhere, and the civilization is still continuing. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.